Very well, we continue with questions with notice. The next question, Deputy Masson will ask of the Chair of the Privileges and Procedures Committee. Deputy Masson.
Thank you, sir. Will the chairperson provide an update on the progress made in relation to implementing Part A of my proposition Diversity Working Group P118 of 2019 as amended? Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you, sir. The Diversity Forum has taken forward work on how to improve the diversity of the boards of arm's-length bodies and other states-funded organisations, with staff from the GREF and the Chief Operating Office both involved. A paper on current practice in Jersey and international best practice has been submitted to the Diversity Forum, and I expect PPC to present a report on the matter shortly. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy?
Yes, I wonder if the Chair is able to indicate roughly when that report will be produced. Will it be before the elections? And how, are there going to be some concrete recommendations in that report? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Yes, the report has already been produced. It's just there's been a number of meetings, unfortunately, that have been cancelled with the Diversity Forum due to issues with quorum and sickness. So the reports have been issued. It's currently with the Diversity Forum and it should be coming to PPC very shortly. So it will definitely be before the election. Thank you, sir.
Very well. We move down to question 8 that Deputy Pershard will ask of the Minister for Housing and Communities.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise the Assembly how many islanders were considered homeless according to the government's current categorisation as of the end of 2021, specifying how many were in the age brackets of 16 to 24, 25 to 39, 40 to 64 and 65 and above?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Current situation as of yesterday is that we have 2 islanders who we would classify as roofless. There is capacity in our facilities for temporary accommodation. The Housing Advisory Service has been running since July, and in that time it dealt with 53 referrals, all of whom were offered accommodation. The Shelter Trust currently is looking after 101 clients. As I say, they do still have capacity. Of those, approximately 20% are between the ages of 17 and 25, and the rest are above that age. I know that's not exactly in the way that the Deputy wanted that information. I don't have that in that format, but I hope that's helpful.
Supplemental question, Deputy Pershard?
Yes, sir. Would you be able to provide that information, perhaps, and circulate it to members?
You've gone quiet, Deputy. Are you?
I should still be. I'll try again, sir. Can you hear me?
Deputy Pershard, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I am. I don't think you can hear me.
I think someone's touched the machine at the back or something, and we seem to have gone.
So I can hear her.
I can hear her.
Right. We can't hear Deputy Pershard here. Right.
It's okay.
Deputy, I think we can hear you now, Deputy. If you'd like to ask your supplemental question.
Yes. Would the Minister be happy to provide those numbers in those brackets or in some form of age bracket that I've outlined? And is this a decrease in the number of people who are considered homeless since 2018, where I think the reported number was 346? If it is a decrease, could the Minister outline what has happened between 2018 and now to result in that decrease of number, which is obviously a positive thing?
Yes. Minister.
Well, that was before my time, so I'm not sure about that. it's very difficult to provide the statistics in the way that the Deputy wants, because it's so fluid. But we've just been holding on since the creation of the Housing Advisory Service. We've partnered up with Homeless Link UK, who are the equivalent agency in the UK, and they've been monitoring how we're progressing in moving forward the homelessness strategy, and their audit, effectively, their report and recommendations are going to be with us, I think, this week, imminently. So it's very possible, and we anticipate there might be the suggestion and how we do it to gather that information in the way that the Deputy is suggesting, and I'll update her on that. So it's an aspirational thing, and it's something we should move towards, but it's got to be done carefully so that the statistics do tell an accurate picture, paint an accurate picture. Well, the housing strategy is, and our housing critical support team and the Housing Advice Service as all part of that. The extra funding that we've made available is all helping to try to tackle the homelessness issue. It's very important that we remember, actually, homeless is a very broad term. We divide it up into 4 categories: roofless, houseless, insecure, or inadequate accommodation.
Very well. Senator Mesek.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister have any understanding of a breakdown for the current numbers of homeless people in the island that he's aware of, for their reasoning for being homeless, in that how many of them are there because they've had a problem with employment, or how many are there because there isn't suitable permanent accommodation elsewhere for them? Does he have an understanding of the reasons why some of those people have faced homelessness?
Yes,
no, I don't have an accurate breakdown of that. I can certainly do some more investigations on that. I think it's important to remember that whilst it's not as simple as offering somebody accommodation sometimes, and for some of our clients, that's not going to assist them because they have trouble living independently. That's an issue, and what the strategy is all about is finding a pathway out of that, and support, and continued support and help.
Supplemental question, Senator?
Yes, please, sir. I mean, just on that, does the Minister think that there is at the moment an adequate supply of emergency or temporary housing? He did mention Shelter Trust having capacity, which is good to hear, but does he think that there is any scope for providing or assisting in providing more emergency or temporary housing through some of the stock that's currently owned in one shape or form by the States of Jersey that's not having a lot done with it right now?
Well, yes, and that's coming down the line. In fact, the new women's only shelter will open next month. We hope it's a little bit delayed because of COVID. The Women's Refuge is moving, courtesy of Andium Homes, and that will increase in size, I think double in size, and release the building that they're in now. That's the Women's Refuge. So we are increasing capacity, but we generally find at the moment that we're okay.
Well, Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. The Minister mentioned 4 categories of homelessness. I was going to ask how they were categorised. Can I ask the Minister regards those who are in appropriate accommodation? And is there enough information, given that we don't have any sort of register or a licensing system for landlords, for families living in adequate accommodation, such as sleeping in a lounge while children have the 1 bedroom that they have? And how big an issue does the Minister see this?
Well, it's really difficult to quantify because a lot of a lot of those issues are hidden issues and don't come to our attention until very often individuals will refer themselves to the Housing Advice Service, or very often agencies, various agencies will do it on their behalf, and then we can start to collect those figures. And I think that's important to do, and that's what the Housing Advice Service will be doing, keeping that data on what the prevalent problems are, and we should be able to release that information on an annual basis.
Supplemental question, Deputy Ward.
Yes, thank you, sir. Is it not very difficult to have a strategy to address issues when we don't have that information? It just does not really point to a desperate need for a more licensed approach to housing and homes and accommodations for individuals and families in Jersey.
Well, I support the registration of landlords. As the Deputy will probably remember, we are redrafting the entire residential tenancy law. I've just issued instructions for the law drafting of that. In the RTL, we're going to include the provision of a register and build it into that law.
Well, we have Senator Valois, then the final supplemental question. Senator Valois.
Yes, thank you, sir. I'd like to seek clarity from the Minister on Deputy Pershard's original question. In his categorisation, he referred to ruthlessness, homelessness and inadequate housing. His answer to the original question was about ruthless, the number of 2, but the actual question was with regards to homeless. Does the Minister have that particular number?
Well, when people use the term homeless, it's generally in relation to people who are roofless and sleeping rough. In fact, we're doing well on that in Jersey in terms of identifying those people, helping them, taking them to GPs, taking them to other agencies, trying to get them a pathway into accommodation. Some are offered accommodation, but for their own reasons don't take that up. But we still look after them. We're in touch with all of them. The other categories, so that's rooflessness. The others are being houseless, in insecure accommodation or in inadequate accommodation. Well, I gave you the statistics for how many people we are actually temporarily housing at the moment. And as the work of the Housing Advice Service continues, we will continue to gather and note the data.
Supplemental question, Senator?
Yes, thank you, sir, and I appreciate the clarification from the Minister. I just wonder whether the Minister could advise, without having any form of expensive consultants or forms of other huge reviews that we tend to initiate, what's the Minister's view on appropriate data analysis around the types of numbers and considering it against the gateway that we have in place with regards to what used to be referred to as social housing? I would suggest that's not necessarily what we have any longer since 2013 decision.
Well, we don't need to bring in expensive consultants on our work in terms of the Housing Advice Service, the critical support team, the homelessness strategy, because all of that has been consistently monitored by our partner charity Homeless Link UK. And as I say, their report will be with me imminently, I think this week, with their report and recommendations on how we keep improving, how we use the data, how we gather the data, and that's going to be a very definite plus and something we definitely want to do.
Final supplementary question, Deputy Pershard.
Thank you, sir. The Minister, in one of his earlier answers, stated that about 20% of the current number of homeless people are in the younger age bracket that I identified, which is 16 to 24, meaning some of them are school leavers. What are the most common risks to this age group exist that might make it more or less likely that they would end up homeless at the ages of 16 to 24?
I wouldn't like to speculate on that. There are many different reasons why people find themselves, young people as well, in that kind of circumstance. I think what would be helpful for members is if I got our housing advice team and the critical support leader to update everybody on how we're progressing, and I'll organise that briefing, because I think it would be good for members to hear from these fantastic officers who are really dedicated and doing superb work in this area.
Very well. We now come to question 9. The Deputy Ward will ask the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Just finding the question. So I can ask the Minister, will the Minister advise what work, if any, is being undertaken to address the occurrence of paediatric inflammatory multi-system syndrome as the number of COVID cases rise in children in Jersey? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Sir, we know that most children don't become seriously unwell with COVID. Despite increased rates of infection in children, rates of hospital admission in Jersey remain very low. In the UK, doctors have seen a small number of children and teenagers who develop a rare inflammatory condition linked to the virus referred to in the question, which I will abbreviate to PIMS. It remains very rare. It occurs in less than 0.5% of children who have had COVID. Most children with the condition will not be seriously affected, but in a very small number of cases, it can be serious. The median age of children with PMIS is 8 years, mostly in the male sex with obesity from Black or Asian ethnicities. There are no cases of PIMS recorded in Jersey to date in the paediatric age group. As to measures to prevent recurrence, firstly, maintaining low community transmission rates and continued vaccination of children and adolescents reduces the risk. Secondly, public health guidance makes people aware of the signs and symptoms and importance of timely contact with healthcare workers. Thirdly and lastly, the medical and nursing teams are trained in identifying early signs of PMIS and diagnosing with tests and executing treatment plans in accordance with established good clinical practice. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Supplementary question, Deputy Ward.
Yes, thank you, sir. So I asked the Minister, I was pleased to hear him say that medical teams are already aware and ready to deal with it. But can I ask the Minister for reassurance that, as we've learned in this pandemic, being prepared for all situations is so important. Can you reassure that that preparedness for this type of condition is there, and can reassure parents that should this very rare occurrence happen, there is a plan to deal with it, and it is discussed, for example, that competent authorities, ministers were making decisions over children and COVID?
Minister.
Well, sir, competent authority ministers have not discussed this particular condition. I don't think we would need to. This is operational preparedness. So I am assured that the medical and nursing teams are trained to identify the early signs. They know how to diagnose with tests, and they know what the treatment plans are. There are pathways for treatment that are set by the Royal College of Paediatric and Child Health UK. And I have every confidence that our staff know of those, and indeed that is what I have been assured of. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Deputy Gardner.
Thank you for the Minister for, thank you, sir. And thank you for the Minister for his responses, really reassuring that the medical team is aware and prepared. At the current wave, we see exceed the number of children with COVID compared to previous waves. Would the Minister advise if the parents or general public would be made aware about specific symptoms of PMS conditions so parents also can react quicker?
Sir, yes, I will pass on that request to see if there's anything more that can be done. I'm inform that there has been public health guidance by way of posters. There has been a media briefing by consultant paediatricians on the Government of Jersey website. That was done in the early days of the pandemic to make parents and caregivers aware of the signs and symptoms and importance of timely contact with a healthcare worker. I think what I could do is to make sure that if that was done in the early days, that information is still in the forefront of the website, it's still easily accessible, and I'll look into that.
Supplemental question, Deputy Gardner?
No, thank you.
Senator Varwa.
Yes, thank you, sir. Could I ask the Minister, there are a number of recovery plans from COVID that have been initiated by the government. What consideration within those COVID plans have been given to this particular condition, if any at all? And how would the Minister envisage that being determined in a way of recovery, whether it's over a medium or long-term period?
Well, there are various complicating conditions from which children can suffer as a result of COVID. So I think the plans address generally the need for children to have the right support and well-being to get them back on track. It addresses educational needs, but in preschool conditions that would address developmental needs. So there's not, I believe, a plan for each and every condition that a child might suffer from, but drawing them all together, they are good plans and good funding to put into ensuring that children can reach their development goals and educational goals too. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Senator.
No, so just briefly, in terms of the plans that the Minister referred to, has he taken soundings from the Children's Commissioner and with regards to United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child?
I know the Children's Commissioner has been involved and consulted in putting together those plans that have come forward as a result of the release of fiscal stimulus monies and the developmental plans to try and address the very real risks that we know children have incurred during this period of the pandemic.
Well, final supplementary question, Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. And we're very pleased that this is a very rare condition, but would the Minister agree that as numbers increase in children, we have to have great deal more awareness and facility to identify this type of condition? It's something we might be living with into the long term. Thank you, sir.
I would agree with that. We do need to be aware of it, and I'm confident that our clinicians are aware, and I'll do what I can to ensure that it achieves the appropriate prominence on our public health guidance. Thank you.
Well, we come to question 10 that Senator Ferguson will ask the Chair of the State's Employment Board. Senator Ferguson. Senator Ferguson. Senator Ferguson, are you able to?
I pressed the button. Right. Will the Chair advise whether the State's Employment Board agreed any policy to govern contacts between senior managers and their direct reports outside of standard working hours, and if so, whether it is considered acceptable for senior managers to initiate such contact in the evening to provide feedback or criticism?
So, Congressman Swan has taken this question, sir.
Yes, sure.
Thank you, sir. And I'm sure the Senator is not going to be surprised by my response, as she's already been in touch with officers previously about this case, and we have advised her of the State's Employment Board's disapproval of the behaviour described in her question. Across the range of public service, we have committed public servants who work a range of different working patterns to enable services to be delivered. Contact from senior managers outside agreed working patterns to provide feedback as described in the question is, and I stress, is absolutely not acceptable and should not be happening. Our general advice where an occurrence such as this happens is that the staff members should initially try to resolve this informally, but if that's not successful, then there are sufficient scope within the State's Employment Board Code of Conduct and potentially the bullying and harassment policy to provide a firm challenge for this sort of behaviour.
Supplemental question, Senator Ferguson.
Well, what does the SEB intend to do to prevent such actions, given that a complaint would normally, from my experience of workings in the civil service, such a complaint would result in bullying of the junior member of staff?
Well, as I'm sure the Senator is aware, there is sufficient scope within the bullying and harassment policy to resolve these issues initially informally, but if it isn't resolved informally, then there is scope within the bullying and harassment policy for it to be resolved formally, and HR officers would deal with that.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. And could I ask the Assistant Minister whether this extends his welcome words that said this approach is not something that should be happening, extends to other areas of public service, for example, in teaching and lecturing, where as education has moved into people's homes with people working online, the likelihood of being contacted out of hours has increased. So does he extend that same intention to those areas of work? Thank you, sir.
Yes, I thank the Deputy for his question. I mean, I think we all understand that we're living in unusual and strange times, and calls on our time come at unusual times. But as a general principle, senior managers or managers should not be harassing staff at unsociable and unreasonable hours to provide the sort of feedback that the Senator described in her question. So yes, the SEB would certainly support staff members that had a problem of that nature.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. And how is, I think it's similar to the Senator's question, but how is he going to ensure that isn't happening given the pressures that staff are under across our public service?
Well, I think given that this issue has been highlighted to the State's Employment Board, I've already asked officers to draft a note outlining the sort of issues should not occur, and that senior managers should have respect to more junior members of staff, of private time and home time, and that will be going out shortly.
Well, Senator Balwell.
Yes, thank you, sir. Can I ask the Vice Chair how the State's Employment Board determine whether the policies that he's referred to are actually being carried out in the spirit and the actual expectations of the State's Employment Board, in that the culture required to ensure that this type of thing does not continue to happen is kept up as expectations of that board that have agreed the policies?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer, but normally we would initially expect to receive the sort of feedback that we received from Senator Ferguson, which initially would raise concerns along these lines. But more formally, we use, as the Senator knows, staff surveys to try and gauge staff reaction to their working conditions, and we would use that as a feedback mechanism. But certainly we would expect to get feedback through managers that this sort of problems is happening, and as such we would take action to stop it.
Supplemental question, Senator?
Yes, thank you, sir. Can I ask the Vice Chair whether they're satisfied that the customer feedback or the complaints mechanisms that are in place at present are sufficient to ensure that the culture that's being expected to be played out in the public sector is the one that is expected by the States Employment Board?
Well, I think I would respond rather unusually to the Senator and say that we're never complacent about the policies we have in place, and we're always alive and alert to feedback we receive from the staff, especially where that indicates that the intention of the States Employment Board in this respect isn't taking place. So, but yeah, the policies we have in place seem to be working, but that doesn't mean to say that if it's demonstrated to us that it isn't working, we're not going to do something about it.
Have Deputy Tallier, then final supplemental question. Deputy Tallier.
Thank you, sir. Does the chairman agree that it isn't necessarily a problem if emails are received from managers after working hours, but it is more so the expectation about whether or not somebody can be expected to respond or work after hours because of an email being sent? Is that his understanding of things?
No, I thank the deputy for his question, and that would be my understanding. It's as always in these situations, it's about reasonableness. I mean, we're very lucky in the state's workforce that we have a very dedicated, loyal, and a workforce that goes well above and beyond at times to achieve their aims. But that doesn't mean to say that managers should take advantage of that and should play on the staff members' good nature. And if that happens, then we will take action.
Supplemental question, Deputy?
No, sir.
Very much. Final supplementary, Senator Ferguson.
Yes, in the private sector, as the Vice Chairman knows, managers are in fact sacked if they behave like this. Will the chairman come back to the Vice Chairman come back to the Assembly to report on how SEB will make senior managers understand that such behaviour is indefensible and will result in a warning on the personnel file?
Yeah, well, I can respond to that question. I thank the Senator for her questions. And I can respond immediately. As I've already indicated, we will be sending out a reminder to managers exactly along the lines that the Senator lays out, because it isn't acceptable, and it is playing on loyal staff members' good nature to do this sort of thing.
Very well. We come now to question 11. The Deputy Higgins will ask the Minister of the Environment. Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise members what, if anything, he has learned from the Norfolk Police investigation into his department, and explain whether he considers it necessary to take any action to ensure the public has confidence and faith in the department going forward?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. The 3.5-year independent police investigation, as Deputy knows, was in respect of historic cases. And in the intervening 14 years, the planning system has had many substantive changes and improvements. And the department has an ongoing improvement programme with recommendations which come from the regular external reviews. It is my intention to publish a report on this implementation programme, the changes made I've mentioned, and those in the pipeline, because there certainly needs to be a process to continue improvement. However, the publication of that report will need to wait a while because, as the Deputy knows, one of the complainants in the matter, investigator Norfolk Police, did lodge a civil claim, which was previously stayed until that stay was lifted by the Royal Court this week. So there is an active, therefore, a piece of live litigation, which means I'm restricted what I say about that at the matter, but it is my intention, as I said, to publish that report. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary question, Deputy Higgins.
Yes, thank you, sir. The Norfolk Police have stated that although their investigation did not meet the very high criminal standard of beyond all reasonable doubt required to bring a criminal prosecution, they did say that the department was massively inconsistent, dysfunctional, and not fit for purpose. They also stated that one officer willfully lied to the court as a prosecution witness. Surely any lies told in court taint the evidence of all officers giving evidence and the case as a whole, and reflect badly on the public service. Will the Minister accept that no officer should lie in court, and state what action, if any, has been taken against the officer who willfully lied under oath in the court and who is still working in the department?
Well, sir, I think the deputy's supplementary question there seems to rerun the entire inquiry, repeating many allegations which were made. And of course, as the deputy knows, he and I both had a briefing from the 3 police officers concerned, with the stakeholders, and there were allegations of perjury and misconduct in public office, which the investigation has concluded no foundation sufficient for prosecution. So they were not upheld. I think that's very, very important. Of course, it's absolutely right that the planning system, the integrity of everybody is above question. And there's no question that those are the standards we aspire for. But of course, the planning system isn't perfect. It involves judgment, as the deputy knows, and there is always that subjectivity in that, and individuals are going to differ. And personally, frankly, sir, I think the police officers did, of course, a bit. They are not experts in the planning system. So at the moment, I would rely upon judgment of those that are in this matter, sir. But as I said, I will be publishing a report of that. Thank you, sir.
Sir, the minister did not answer the question.
Well, you'll have a further supplemental at the end. You'll have a further supplemental at the end, Deputy Higgins. You can come back and explore the answer in greater detail. Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. So I believe the Norfolk Police also said that there were a number of issues relevant to the implementation of planning legislation during the time period they were investigating, including questionable processes, procedure and conduct of individuals. What action will be taken to rectify the issues described?
Well, I have, of course, had to, because those comments were made at the briefing. As I said, I've got my reservations about them because obviously the police investigation was a criminal one. It wasn't run by those with understanding of the planning system, and but nonetheless, I have written to the chairman of the States Employment Board and invited them to discuss the report that they've heard. I've also had a chance to talk to the Director General of the department about the matter, and I've subsequently written to further. And I said my opinion is that I don't think that, since these matters are historic and a number of the staff who's named were no longer employed, that I don't consider there is a case for further investigation of any disciplinary matter. But nonetheless, that's how things lie. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental, Deputy Tadier?
Yes, please. Will the Minister agree to review the planning decisions taken by his officers following the statement of the Norfolk Police? Different officers. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, sir.
So to review, so I think what more.
Sorry, I haven't finished my question, sir.
Sorry,
let's wait for the deputy to finish his question.
Sorry. Apologies, there's maybe a delay that's not helping. Just will the Minister agree to review the planning decisions taken by his officers, and also the statement that different officers were applying the same laws differently, which has led to some people being denied planning permission for which other people were granted planning permission?
So I think the premises of the deputy's question in that final sentence I could not accept. Therefore, there were differential treatment under the laws. I don't believe there was any evidence or suggestion that the case. There were, in fact, different judgments of how planning policies would be applied, which in my experience is a normal characteristic of a planning system. It requires judgment, as I said. It is not a simple one way or the other. So I don't believe there's any evidence or suggestion of contravening the law, but nonetheless, there are improvements which need to be made, and therefore I've said I should be bringing a report of that programme that's in place to try and do that, sir. I think that's the best answer I can give at the moment.
I have Deputy Morell and then final supplementary question. Deputy Morell. Deputy Morell?
Yes, sir. Apologies. I lost the screen for a second. In his answer to Deputy Higgins, the Minister mentioned the importance of integrity in the planning system. Does the Minister believe, following things such as the Norfolk investigation and other concerns that individual members of the island have raised particular issues and complaints about the system, does he believe that islanders feel the planning system has integrity. So
I think any planning system, sir, relies on public confidence in it. Now, Deputy Higgins, of course, has made, and he's absolutely entitled to do this, has been very clear, and I believe there were, I think, 15 complainants, and I think Deputy Higgins represented them. There's been a 3.5-year in-depth investigation involving interviews and so on in depth, and so my reluctance to concede any things that require further investigation is because simply it would be repeating the same. Thousands of planning decisions are made, and of course it's entirely happy for any of these matters for people to come forward with new applications which the planning system will deal with. So yes, I want to keep the confidence. If I felt that I lacked that confidence, I would say so. I don't. I have confidence in the officers that are currently in place, and also the system changes that have been introduced to improve matters. But it isn't perfect, sir. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister believe that a lack of planning officers and planning enforcement officers is eroding faith in islanders? Eroding the faith of islanders in the planning system?
Well, certainly, sir, the issue of enforcement has been a very problem area. Historically, there were complaints, and I think these have been upheld, but that's frankly about very heavy-handed processes done by previous enforcement officers who are no longer employed by government, and indeed new rules, new standards, and different training has been introduced for people now who do that enforcement work. So I feel much more content with that than things that went on in the past, which are subject to the investigation. I think there has been a shortage of resource. We could do with more, sir, and we could do with more planning officers, because when people are put under pressure and they're carrying twice the workload that they normally should be required to, it's inevitable mistakes may be made. And I'm very hopeful now the government plan has given us decent resources that can be put right in the improvement plan, and that will be in the report, as I said, I've undertaken to produce, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Higgins.
Yes, thank you, sir. I must admit I've been absolutely amazed by the Minister's answers, especially as he's known from the beginning the problems that really were going on there and did nothing. Anyway, the question. Norfolk Police also said that there are still current issues regarding senior people working in the department, 2 of whom who were interviewed under caution by them as part of their investigation. What is the Minister proposing to do about these problems, or does he consider that it's no one's fault and that no one should be held to account for the failures in the department, which include, I may add, his chief officer or the Minister himself, who are responsible for the oversight of the department? The Minister, as I've said, had direct knowledge of these problems since 2014, before he became a Minister, and had direct contact with the people making the complaints. And how he can say what he's done, I find it amazing.
Well,
how will the Minister respond?
So the question is, the report said this, what's he going to do about it? Is that right?
Well, certainly, sir. The report definitely, well, the police said one of his officers willfully lied under oath. It may have not met the test of perjury, but they willfully lied under oath. What will he do about that person? And who's going to take responsibility for this fiasco?
Minister.
So what can I say? The deputy now repeats his allegations despite the findings of the police inquiry. He says things which have not been substantiated, including he makes allegations against me personally, which I strongly reject, and I would need a separate occasion to be able to answer those, sir, not now. Frankly, I feel pretty speechless about the way deputies approach that. But nonetheless, sir, what am I going to do? There are improvements. The State's Employment Board have the matter on their agenda. I've asked them to look at it, to discuss it. And if the State's Employment Board feel there is a case for further disciplinary investigation into these matters that have already been looked at, then I think the board obviously would trigger that, sir. I've brought that to their attention. Thank you.
I shall have to bring a vote of no confidence, I think. Thank you, sir.
Yes, comment at the end of questions is really not in accordance with standing order, is an abuse of the question system. We come to question 12. The Connaught Iveson Helly will ask the Minister for the Environment. Conitop.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister explain how he will ensure the fairness of the planning application process in respect of the new hospital, given that the public and statutory consultees are being asked to comment on the application under the provisions of the existing island plan, yet the planning inspector has indicated that he will assess the application according to the bridging island plan to be debated in March?
Minister.
Thank you. I think I would like to refer the Constable to the Solicitor General's answer to Senator Moore's oral question number 238 this year. And of course, the law is quite clear that planning applications should be determined under the island plan, which is in place at the time of the decision. So obviously I've had to plan for the planning inquiry of the hospital, and the direction I gave to the inspector is that the inquiry should be held on the basis of the bridging island plan if it is approved by the states. Obviously, sir, the issue of the change of plan is quite a normal matter in planning decisions. So, for example, this would also, if the states approve the island plan, which they hope they do, it of course will affect all other planning applications in the pipeline that have all been made. And indeed, in fact, the planning committee on the 7th of April will be required to make decisions based on that equally a very, very short time after the law, as will planning officers, sir. So I think, you know, what I've done is that obviously these questions have been raised. A letter has been written setting out the legal position to those correspondents who have published their letter explaining that position. Of course, the inspector runs the process, sir, and the inspector will, I feel confident with the brief he's got, ensure that the facts and the objections that people have made have a proper hearing. And of course, there is plenty of time to do that, sir. Thank you.
Well, could I remind members the answer should be 1 minute 30 seconds. If they stray too much time over that, then I will inevitably ask them to be cut shorter. Supplemental question, Connie Harbison-Hellyer.
Thank you, sir. While I accept the Minister's argument that there are hundreds of applications that will be affected in a similar way, is it not the case that this is such a major project affecting the lives of all islanders, but in particular thousands of St Helier residents whose views are being put forward both individually and by the Parish Roads Committee? Would it not be fairer in terms of the process to remove reference to the new hospital project from the Bridging Island plan so that it can be judged in a way that is fair?
Well, so I'm hopeful that the inspector that is responsible for running that process, using the powers that he's got under the legislation, which gives him the control of the procedure entirely, and the brief given would allow that to be so. And of course, I think the realities of the matter is that the application has been published since November. The island plan, of course, draft, the bridging island plan has been published since last April. And so these documents are well long in the public domain. And of course, the law requires for all material considerations to be taken into account at the termination. And of course, that's what people who have made objections will have put forward to the inspector. So I would imagine, I would expect the process to be as fair as it can be, sir.
Well, I have questions asked by Deputy Gardner, Senator Valwa, Deputy St Martin, Deputy Morell and Senator Moore. I will take those questions, but no more after that. Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. As Minister is all of us aware, the likelihood of the Bridging Island plan being adopted 3 days before the public inquiry by the inspector will start. Does the Minister agree with view expressed in the letter that he has received from the Safe Jersey Heritage that the government of Jersey is proceeding with the insufficient regard to due process and the statutory rights of islanders to play a proper part in an independent public inquiry and opening itself to challenge by the way of judicial review on the ground that it has adopted a procedure that could be, for reasons listed above, frustrate the efforts of objectors to secure fair hearing for the views? And if not, Why not?
Thank you, sir. Well, obviously the letter was received, and I think obviously it's a very important letter from Save Jersey Heritage, because it does make reference to a suggestion in there, a strong one, about a judicial review. Of course, sir, that is why the reply has had to have very careful consideration and has been drafted strictly in accordance with the law. That is a reply which has not been sent by myself, which has been sent by our officers dealing with the matter. Of course, in the end, if the reply is challenged, of course, then the proper place to determine whether there is that the suggestion that the deputy makes is in fact through the courts. I hope that won't be necessary. My job is to try and make the process as fair as it can be, as I know the inspectors will do so. I think what we have to do, we haven't got a perfect situation. It's not a perfect timetable, but I think it's the one that is I believe that we need to follow. It's the best option for us at the moment. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Will the minister agree to defer the timetable for the public inquiry to allow time for members of the public and interested parties to make submissions to the inquiry after the adoption of the Bridging Island Plan, with the new deadline for the submission of the statements being, say, 2 weeks, 1 month of the day which the new plan is adopted by the states?
I think I have spoken to the officers about it, and I've asked them to talk with the inspector whether there can be any flexibility in a number of days. But I think if there is to be any flexibility, I think it's likely to be no more than a week. But in any event, I think I would maintain the position that I think that the issues that people want to bring to the attention of the inspector will not be any different. Any differences will be in the question of policies between the old and new island plan, which is, if you like, a judgment which is made by whoever makes the decision. Now, the inspector, of course, has known about a Bridging Island plan right from the start, so he knows about those matters. I think what I have asked to be published, which will help the deputy and everybody else, is a summation of the policies that affect the hospital between the old and the new plans. And I expect that the major difference will be is policy C19 in the new island plan, which adopts the state's decision to make Overdale the site, and also the public interest test. And the public interest test, it merely consolidates what is already implied in the existing island plan, sir. So anyway, that statement will be published very shortly. Thank you.
Senator Barber.
Yes, thank you, sir. It's no surprise to anyone that a number of concerns have been raised by members of the public around the hospital build. So I'm going to cut to the chase, and I'm going to ask the Minister, has the Bridging Island Plan been manipulated to ensure the government get the hospital project built as they envisage?
No, sir. Right early on, the question came during the drafting stage, and of course, although the officers are doing the work, remember the senator will know the drafting stage was well over a year ago. The states made a decision to make adoption the development of the hospital at Overdale. I believe it was back in November 2018. That was a decision that I took no part in. I've absolved myself from any meeting and never had any discussion at any political meeting, including states meetings, when the hospital project was under specific consideration. So therefore I've avoided that. But I did have to make a choice whether or not the state's decision was adopted effectively within the draft island plan when we published it. And of course the senator knows that there are objections that were made at the inquiry, and the inspector is due to report on that, and of course the states will have the benefit of that report when they decide whether or not that policy stays or not. And that, I think, will be the critical matter. So I think the processes there can deal with this matter, so thank you.
Supplemental, Senator Vowell.
Yes, thank you, sir. Can I ask the Minister then, he referred to a summation being expected between old and new plans. What types of things does he expect to be seen in that summation? in terms of the fact that we've seen a rejection of a previous hospital plan on the current site, and now a planned new build on the new site that may be higher than what we expect. What kind of summation does the Minister expect to see from an independent inspector?
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Senator. I think I should probably explain my remarks earlier about public interest test a little bit better. Obviously, my expectation will be, and I haven't seen the draft statement yet, but it will be produced. We'll set out policies such as the green zone policy, shoreline, the green backdrop zone policy, the skyline policy, and so on. Now, those policies I don't believe will be very substantially changed, but what the policies do in the new plan is to include a specific policy that says that such considerations can be, if you like, set aside, or if they're in the overriding public interest. Now, as I said, that is now proposed to be an explicit policy in those new policies in the draft plan. That was never the case as explicit one, but it's always been in all planning considerations a test in law, a public interest test. So I think please wait for the statement, please, Senator, and it will be there as soon as I can get it out there.
Deputy Morell, you're seeking a point of clarification. I'm afraid that's not possible within the context of an answer to a question. You can only seek a point of clarification from a speech if the speaker gives way. Deputy St Martin.
Thank you, sir. So is it the Minister's intention to determine this application during the State's recess after the 10th of May?
So I think I'm going to take that decision at the time the inspector report comes, sir. I don't want to prejudge that. I want to get to the point where the inquiry has happened, it's been dealt fairly, and then the inspector has a chance to be able to properly produce that report for my consideration, sir, and I will make that decision at that time. I think I probably should have it, probably help the members, that if it turns out, of course, is that the Bridging Island plan in any way does get modified, then of course it will be open to me then to postpone the inquiry, well, just postpone the inquiry. But I am therefore very dependent. I'm wanting to see the thing through the various stages which I've outlined.
Supplemental question, Deputy St Martin.
Thank you, sir. Maybe I should rephrase the question like this. Sir, would it be the Minister's intention to determine this application after the 10th of May if the inspector's recommendation doesn't arrive on his desk by that date?
Sorry, I'm struggling. Could I clarify the question? What date is the deputy referring to?
10th of May.
So I'm unable to answer that question at the moment. The answer is it depends on the circumstances. I don't want to be bound on something and committed irretrievably before I've seen the substance what I'm being asked to decide, sir.
Very well. Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. Just a quick reference to my previous request for a point of clarification. It was only because I think the Minister said that Overdale was chosen by the states in 2018, but it was in fact in 2020. I just wanted to give him the opportunity to correct that on record, sir.
So do you wish to ask a question, Deputy?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Well, if you'd ask your question.
As Senator Balwar mentioned, I have also received plenty of communications from islanders concerned about the situation with the Bridging Island plan and the existing island plan and the new hospital planning inquiry. In reference to my previous supplementary questions, is the Minister at all concerned that islanders could lose faith in the integrity of the planning system if they are not satisfied that this is a very fair system planning inquiry for the hospital, sir?
Well, yes, that I would have failed, sir, and of course I do apologise for that error. My recollection was, I'm sorry that maybe I've got the sequence wrong, that there was a proposition to rescind previous decisions on the hospital and put it in. I may have got the timing right about Overdale, but it was certainly before the draft plan was published, sir, which is when it. Yes, it would be my concern, sir. And if you know, I think I am going to see. My preferred way of dealing with this is to let the inquiry happen and see and listen to what takes place. It will be streamed live. We will all be able to hear how successful it is and how much confidence people have got. And if there are problems, they'll come to light, sir. And as I say, I don't want to prejudge what actions I would take until I know that's the case, but it would be my concern. I don't want to, in fact, it's my duty to maintain the public confidence in the planning system as best I can.
Supplemental question, yes, Deputy?
Yes, please, sir. Waiting till the inquiry is concluded is fine for maintaining faith in the planning system, but in order to maintain faith in the planning inquiry itself for the hospital, surely the Minister would agree that he has to do work before the planning inquiry to ensure that islanders have faith in it.
Yes, sir. That's why I've asked to produce this statement of the policies, and I've certainly asked the officers to publish their response to the Save Jersey's Heritage letter, which I think they have put into the public domain, and therefore it's right that the response goes into the public domain in the spirit of openness, sir. And of course they've been made, those two pieces of correspondence will be made available to the inspector, sir. And if the inspector says that he does not think this procedure is right, then I'll have to respond to that and take that on board, sir.
Senator Moore?
Thank you, sir. Yesterday, the Future Hospital Review Panel wrote to the Minister to express concern about the lack of time between the closing of the debate on the Bridging Island plan and the beginning of the inquiry into the hospital planning application. How will the Minister be responding to the Future Hospital Review Panel?
Well, I have asked the office to see whether there's any latitude in the timetable and discuss this with the inspector. So I think at the moment that letter I received yesterday, in fact yesterday afternoon, so I'd like a little more time to respond to it than just a couple of hours, if I may, sir. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Senator?
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister accept that it is likely that there will be amendments in the Bridging Island plan debate that might have a material impact upon the ability of the inspector to consider the hospital application?
Yes, sir, I do that, absolutely. Members, of course, when as the Senator knows, that as soon as I'm able to publish, have received the inspector's report on the Bridging Island plan, that it will be published. That is probably imminent within the next 7 to 10 days. Members then have the ability to bring in amendments to matters referred to in the report. Then it is like there is the opportunities for members to bring amendment on policies affecting the hospital, and of course I can, if indeed those amendments are carried, then it is possible that will impact on the inquiry, and it is possible that that could result in the inquiry being put off to a later date, according to how the states decide to treat those amendments. So yes, I accept that that is procedurally possible, but at the moment we have to deal with what is.
Final supplementary, Colin Tarp, St Helier.
Thank you, sir. Last week, the St Helier Roads Committee met in open session and spent 2.5 hours formulating the strongest possible objections to the application, particularly in respect of environmental collateral damage, but also heritage concerns as well. And isn't there a real danger that these concerns will be swept aside if a new policy is approved by the states, which gives the inspector carte blanche to basically overrule and override these kind of concerns?
Well, all planning decisions, of course, are a balance of consideration between different policies. And so, you know, it isn't a case of that all policy directions always point one way. Pretty well every planning applications, a judgment has to be made, and the relative balance or weight being given to different policies in those decisions. That is the job of the decision maker. In this case, the best qualified person, which is the planning inspector, will make those judgments. At the end of the day, there's the political call on that. So I think what I can't do, and maybe I probably summarised what the policy differences between the old and new plan, sir. Could I haven't got the wording to hand. I would like to, if the constable could reserve judgment until he's seen that statement, which will set that out in a little more clearly than I've been able to do so. Thank you.
Very much indeed. We come to question 13. The Deputy Pamplin will ask for the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy Pamplin.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister state the current use of the former Samaray ward and advise what clinical barriers, if any, there are to using the ward for complex rehabilitation in the short term while work is ongoing in relation to the new hospital?
Minister.
Sir, yes, currently the building which housed Samaray Ward is occupied by various services who are due to move to the former Lake Henvey School during 2022. There are 6 of them: the pre-assessment service, retinal screening, the Fit for Life service, neurology, the assisted reproduction service, and community therapies. The Deputy has used the phrase complex rehabilitation in his question, which clinically refers to patients who should be managed in specialised tertiary centres in the UK. Patients with complex rehabilitation require access to acute healthcare services, which from a clinical safety point of view cannot be provided on a satellite site such as Overdale, as this limits access to key professionals and services and can therefore lead to risk and delays in treatment. But I do wonder if the Deputy did not mean patients needing complex rehabilitation as clinically defined. And if that's the case, then I refer to comments I've made already and which are in my amendment on Samaray. It would notionally be possible to move services around, but that would only be for a few months before they would need to move again, as the building housing Samaray Ward is to be demolished if the Our Hospital planning application is granted. So operationally, I don't really see how that is possible or in the best interests of anyone concerned. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Pamplin.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Minister for his answer. Regardless of that point, if the State's decision this week is approved as unamended this week, what has been looked at of making that achievable, if it is the will of the Assembly, in the short term, not knowing the full outcome of the future hospital as of yet? Could it work that some services could be returned to Samaray in that instance, if it is the will of the Assembly? Thank you, sir.
I consider we would need to do a very careful risk assessment that considers the disruption caused to patients and the effect of staff in them undertaking yet another short-term move. But really the planning would need to be around what happens after a few months. Well, is it feasible to move for a few months? And then what? Do they, so that would have to happen. What other alternatives there are that can provide the right clinical environment for the patients we want to care for? That is the difficulty here, and we know that the clinical advice is that this would be an unsafe thing to do, and I believe the disruption it would cause to the service, detracting from the delivery of care to planning a relocation, is just not something that we should consider. Thank you, sir.
Very much. I already have Constable St John, Deputy Higgins, Senator Valwar, Constable St Brillard and Senator Pallett seeking to ask questions. I'll take no questions in addition to that. Constable St John.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister confirm the last time he visited Samaray Ward and if you found the building to be sound, warm and watertight?
I last visited in November. It appeared to me to be sound and watertight.
And would the Minister agree with me that those services that have been put in there, including officers, some 4 officers, I believe, could be relocated within the state's estate? Thank you.
As I said, it is possible to move services around. I'm not aware of any officers working from there who are not also clinically qualified and working clinically. There are lots of things that might be possible But that building, if we proceed as we all have chosen to proceed, which is to build a hospital at Overdale to serve the island, which is desperately needed, that building is planned to come down. Is it in the interests of patients and staff to move up there for such a very short period and then need to plan where to go after just a matter of months?
Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. The Minister keeps on referring to a very short period of time. Does he have the critical path analysis of the build? And does it not start with all the roadworks first? And it could be a year or even possibly 2 years before doing some work on that site. Will he obtain a copy of the critical path analysis and provide it to states members? Thank you, sir.
So my understanding is, because of groundworks involved, the wish would be to demolish many of the present buildings at Overdale at an early stage.
Supplementary, sir.
Yes.
The Samurai Ward is contained in one of the best buildings on the site, and I'm sure it could be worked around that it could be maintained for as long as possible to provide some of these services. Will the Minister investigate and report back to the states? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
I would disagree with the Deputy, I'm afraid. Maintaining a building which has got to come down at some time in the middle of a building site, a huge building site where there has to be ground leveling and all sorts of investigations. This building we want demolished because we want to create the better picture of building a new hospital for the island, which is so desperately needed. So there is, it seems to me, we need to concentrate on services, we need to concentrate on patient outcomes, and not on a building and a disruption caused by going backwards and forwards to different buildings all the time. Thank you, sir.
Senator Valwa.
Yes, thank you, sir. Other than the Jersey care model rhetoric around rehabilitation, what are the long-term plans for rehabilitation in terms of secondary care with regards to the health service?
So, sir, no members have received a letter from our island's medical director and chief nurse, which set out their vision for the delivery of rehabilitation in all scenarios in healthcare. So from the very moment somebody comes into the healthcare services, thought should be given to their rehabilitation. So rehabilitation is far more than just care after stroke or therapies after injury. It is about restoring somebody to the condition they were before, or as near as possible. And that covers all healthcare interventions and is something that the medical director and the chief nurse want to deliver as a whole service in all settings and not in a standalone building. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary, Senator.
Yes, thank you, sir. Rehabilitation is more than about community services and community care. There's also, I've not heard anything about the work of health and social services working with the likes of Sports Jersey or other areas.
Senator, there has to be a question, I'm afraid.
Yes,
At the moment, there's a series of statements.
And the Minister referred to patients' outcomes. Members of the public want to see those good patient outcomes like they saw at Samurai Ward. So what does the Minister expect to see without Samurai Ward going forward?
So on the first part of the Senator's question, sir, that there is work that has been carried out with Jersey Sport. The program called Move More takes patients and organised by Jersey Sport, that in conjunction with HCS helps people to recover their ability to walk, to be mobile. I'm just trying to reach for the second part of the Senator's question. I'm sorry, sir, I've lost it.
I'm afraid I don't remember it either.
Sir, if I may, it was in reference to without summary ward. What does the Minister expect to see in terms of rehabilitation services?
Yes.
The Jersey Care model.
Yes, sir, because I remember the Senator referred to my reference to patient outcomes. And this is the difficulty. There was good care delivered on Sam Ray Ward, but there was no recording of patient outcomes. There was no clinical parameters that were set out there. And we are now in a position where we are recording patient outcomes in the rehabilitation service, as we are trying to do throughout HCS, to be able to measure our services and give assurance that we are achieving. And as I have said in answer to the petition and other answers, that we are part of what is called SSNAP, which is a UK stroke rehabilitation assessment scheme, and we feed into that and provide the results of our outcomes for recording throughout the UK and assessing how best to provide stroke services throughout the UK, and we use that. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Pamplin.
Thank you, sir.
No, I beg your pardon.
Oh.
I beg your pardon. No, I'm entirely wrong. I seem to have written your name down twice in the wrong place. I apologise for that, Deputy.
I forgive you.
Harbison Brillard.
Thank you, sir. Given the public outcry suggesting the move of Sam Ray Ward to Plemore Ward at Gloucester Street has been grossly mishandled, will the Minister be reviewing the performance of staff who've been directing the process? Thank you, sir.
What I am doing, sir, and what I said in the response to the petition, is that I am asking for external eyes to report to me. So I'm putting in place an external advisor with expertise and proficiency in rehabilitation services to take a whole view of our provision in Jersey and report to me. And I'm looking forward to receiving that report. It will be valuable. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary comment.
Quickly, sir, yes, the Minister has yet to put forward a satisfactory interim facility prior to the completion of our hospital. Is it his intention to do so, given that Plemore Ward is far from satisfactory? Thank you, sir.
I disagree with the statement that Plemore Ward is far from satisfactory. Plemore Ward is not Sam Ray Ward. Sam Ray Ward was luxurious, it was quiet, it was a calming place, but Plemore Ward is the same ward that we deliver all our services in. And this is the reason why we choose to build a new hospital, because we recognise the limitations on the wards, but we continue to deliver care, and that care is safe, and that care will need to be delivered in the General Hospital for the next 5 years. We can deliver a good service from Plemore Ward with good clinical outcomes. And in fact, the staff are doing so. I know there, and I've accepted that there are cases where we have let patients down, but we've also delivered good clinical outcomes for other patients. Thank you, sir.
Can I just mention that the supplemental questions, the last two at least, have stretched the limits of relevance to the original question, and I may need, in terms of the time available, to be a little bit more hawkish going forward. Senator Pallett.
Thank you, sir. Irrespective of the timing of any demolition, we accept that may happen. Is there any clinical reason, the Minister's not answered this, is there any clinical reason why a move back to Samray Ward cannot take place?
The medical director for the island has expressed the view that that's certainly not the best provision. It's not optimal. It's a standalone service, and it is best to deliver this clinically where there are all other services. But it's also apparent that it could be done, and it was being done 2 years ago. The objection really is that it's wholly impractical to do so and disruptive to the whole service and the staff, with the result, because of that disruption, that we will see worse clinical outcomes, and that none of us want to achieve.
Supplementary, please, sir.
Yes, Senator.
Well, whether you agree with that statement or not.
Through the chair, please, Senator.
Sorry, sir. Sir, whether you agree with that statement or not, there seems to be no clinical reason why the service cannot go back to Samray Ward. So will the Minister agree then that, unlike the comments in his amendment, that it wouldn't be clinically unsafe to go back to Samray Ward?
Well, I refer to the amendment. I refer to the view of the medical director. Services might be able to be delivered there, but the real point is, if the place has to be demolished, the disruption caused by all of this would be totally pointless and would result in worse patient outcomes. So to that extent,
so the Minister answer the question: is it clinically unsafe?
To that extent, I think it would be clinically unsafe for us to be shifting services around all the time and not concentrating on patient outcomes and the services, instead concentrating on location.
Final supplementary, Deputy Pamplin.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister join me in paying tribute to the hardworking staff who are actually delivering the service and caught between this political issue at the moment, particularly on that measure? My final supplementary is around staffing. Is that one of the reasons clinically why the move to Samray also would be complicated, due to a lack of dedicated staff to fulfil the roles previously fulfilled on Samray Ward? Thank you.
So yes, I do feel very much for the staff at the moment who are dedicated and working hard and are qualified and equipped to deliver the service they are. We do have a full complement of therapists on Plemmoor Ward. We have essentially the same staff that were operating on Samray Ward. So the report in recent media that dozens of them had left was in fact incorrect and arose from an incorrect freedom of information response, which I had never seen, and it seems no one in HCS had seen. But in fact, the number of retirees over the period asked was, I think, just 7, or the number of persons who had left the service. Most of the staff have remained to deliver the excellent care that they do, and they have come through COVID and all of those anxieties and stresses, and they have come through this unsettled period and are ready and are presently delivering a great service from Plemmoor Ward, which is delivering for patients. And we have an improvement plan which we are putting in place rapidly.
Sorry, I must ask you to bring your answer to a close, please, Minister. You've gone over the 1 minute.
I will close, sir. Thank you, sir.
We come to question 14. The Deputy Gardener will ask the same Minister. Deputy Gardener.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether any public engagement initiatives are planned for 2022 in relation to the introduction of the Jersey care model? And if not, why not?
Yes, sir. Happy to confirm that initiatives are planned for 2022. They will take a variety of forms. They may need to be revised depending on the COVID situation at the time, but I hope that's going to not affect things. The team working on the model recognise the importance of engaging with islanders in all sorts of ways about this important project to ensure as many people as possible know about the progress of the model and what stage it is at, an early stage as yet. And in particular, we're aware not every islander has easy access to digital methods of receiving information, so there will be non-digital and digital means. This will include so many things: face-to-face meetings in, for example, parish halls. There'll be static or online exhibitions. There'll be leaflet drops. There'll be presentations to groups of people, videos, posters, articles, advertising, and regular updates on gov.je. In particular, so we note that the public meetings in 2019 were particularly well attended and were a valuable opportunity. And if we can do so in line with COVID restrictions, we aim to run a minimum of 4 public meetings prior to May 2022 to update islanders. And I would very much like to be part of that whilst I am still in this position as Minister. So that is our hope, and we will take all COVID measures needed to ensure they can go ahead safely.
Supplementary question, Deputy Gardner.
No, thank you. I will welcome to see this engagement happening.
Senator Walwell.
Yes, thank you, sir. I'd like to ask the Minister whether he believes that actually the public understand exactly what the Jersey Care Model is and what it means for them individually from certain medical perspectives.
I believe that the public understand that it's important to deliver more care in the community, because I think we all know that healthcare needs to change because people are no longer dying from disease, but instead they are living longer with long-term conditions. That means we cannot rely on secondary service to treat us in wards anymore, because it's about managing conditions which affect our health. And that is best done in the community. I think the public do recognise that and give support to that. Thank you, sir.
Very well. Supplemental question, Senator?
Yes, thank you, sir. And so with regards to the Jersey Care Model, does the Minister actually believe, with what he's just stated, that those with long-term conditions actually have the availability and the initiative and understanding in terms of how to work within a economy that we work in Jersey, in terms of living, their life expectancy and their requirements around management of their conditions, considering the cost of care, particularly with regards to primary care in our model of health and social services?
Minister?
That's a long question, sir.
It is,
yes. So, yeah, I think so many people living with long-term conditions can access help from primary care, but from family nursing, from charitable provision, from specialist clinics in secondary care. So those with long-term conditions can get a feel for what's available. We've only concluded the first year of a 5-year programme, which is the Jersey Care Model, so there is much work still to do. And as to the costs of accessing services, well, it's primary care principally that is the issue here, isn't it? And the primary care providers are part of the Jersey Care Model. They're working with us to deliver these services in the best way for the island. And we are coming forward with proposals for sustainable healthcare, and work is being carried out on that this year with a view to it coming before the next Council of Ministers and being incorporated in a future government plan. So these issues are known and are being worked through. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Pamplin.
Thank you, sir. Before the public engagement can go further, sir, can I ask the Minister that the independent chair that has been delayed being appointed has now been put in place before any further public communication can go forward? Thank you.
Yes, sir, that will be in place. The chair has been appointed and the scrutiny panel, including Deputy Pamplin, will be invited to meet him. I have yet to meet him. The process has taken much longer than we all anticipated due to reasons that have been given to the scrutiny panel and state members in previous questions. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental, Deputy.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Minister for the news and the update. Could you also update us on, has there been a specific employment on somebody to navigate and manage the communication of the care model for the public? Thank you.
Yes, sir, we have comms officers within the team that are working on the Jersey care model.
Deputy Southern.
Thank you, sir. And perhaps the Health Minister might recognise who I'm talking about when I talk about a constituent who has been told that if she stays in the public sector for a knee scan, a simple knee scan, to work out what's wrong with her knee, then it will take 30 to 40 weeks waiting. But if she was to take a private route into accessing that scan, she can do it next Sunday.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Deputy. That's nothing to do with the question. That's the main question, which is to do with public engagement in connection with the Jersey care model. It's nothing to do with specific cases or waiting lists or anything like that, I'm afraid. I have to rule that question out of order.
And then I accept your judgment, sir. Thank you. Point is made.
Final supplementary, Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. I would like to follow up with Minister his response that the public accept Jersey care model and the need to move to the community. I would bring to Minister attention that during the public hearing on the 17th of June with the Public Accounts Committee, Director General for Health and Community Services agreed that public is confused and even feared about Jersey care model. Would Minister explain where his evidence that public accepted and welcoming Jersey care model coming from? It's not about the Jersey care model, it's about public perception.
So I think what I'm trying to say is that the public accept the premise behind the Jersey care model. The name of it perhaps doesn't matter. Could be called something else, but the premise is that more care needs to be delivered in the community where people are living with longer term conditions and they need to live independently. We want to give them that support. I think that is increasingly being understood. So I hope that answers the Deputy's question.
Very well. We may have time for the next question. Question 15, Senator Mesek will ask the Minister for Infrastructure.
Thank you, sir. What actions, if any, has the Minister taken to mitigate the disruption caused by the roadworks taking place at Havre de Pars?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. So the department planned the work in the early months of the year, as traffic figures demonstrate that this is the quietest period for the road network and would have the least impact on the bus service. Officers are liaising daily with our contractor to ensure the work can be completed as efficiently and as soon as possible. I will continue to receive regular updates from the principal engineer whilst these works are ongoing, sir. Thank you.
Supplemental, Senator?
Yes, please, sir. Can the Minister confirm whether he's receiving much feedback from the people who live in the area or commuters who pass through it, given that there have been reports in recent days of people facing quite severe disruption, and is he open to hearing from them so that they can take in that feedback and consider whether there is more that his department can do to ease on some of the problems being caused by that congestion.
Fair comment, sir, but that's already happening. We anticipated this all along. It was work that couldn't be put off. It was work that just had to be done. There's drainage work going on. We actually had a model to work by, which was one many years ago. We had to collapse the rockfall at Mount Bingham, and that was over 3 months. Thank goodness this is going to be weeks, not months. And the disruption then was quite phenomenal. Lots of people who live in St Clement and Grouville come through our depot over Mount Bingham and off to their work or whatever that way. But now everything has to come up La Rue de Forts and through the tunnel, which is where the congestion is. It is being done in sections at our depot, and it is being monitored carefully. And the engineers, senior principal engineers, doing all he can to mitigate the disruption that is happening at the moment. We apologise for the delay, but the team are working as hard as they can to mitigate it. So, thank you.
Very much. I'm afraid that brings the question periods of to Mr.'s questions with notice to an end. We move on to questions without notice. The first period is questions addressed to the Minister for Home Affairs. I'm assuming those who have indicated so far a desire to ask a question. Deputy Tadier, do you have a question for the Minister of Home Affairs?
Sorry, sir, that's an error. It wasn't for him. Thank you.
Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. It was just to ask the Minister, with regard to the grant provided to the Jersey Women's Refuge, would the Minister be able to clarify whether he has ministerial responsibility for the budget for that grant, or whether it is another minister? Thank you, sir.
Sir, the grant for the Women's Refuge actually comes from CLS and the Social Security Minister. The Women's Refuge, of course, is an extremely important part of our domestic violence response, but it is a charity that needs help from the state.
Supplemental, Deputy?
No, thank you, sir.
Deputy Ward.
Sorry, a bit of a sorry. So is that working now? Bit of a
yes, that's fine, Deputy Ward. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. May I ask the Minister? One of the protected characteristics of the Discrimination Jersey Law 2013 is nationality. Does the Minister accept this protected characteristics as integral to protecting against discrimination? Thank you, sir.
Thank you for a proper policy question. I was a little bit upset with the discrimination law at listing characteristics because it cannot ever be completely comprehensive. Discrimination can happen on characteristics that nobody has thought about. So why not nationality, but why not others? I was always a little bit upset. I would have preferred a law that was more inclusive.
Supplemental, Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Minister for his answer very much. So does the Minister agree that his statement in the Bailiwick Express that we should not trust the French can be seen as contrary to the discrimination law?
Well, I wanted to make it short, but I should have said we cannot trust the French government, although we are in talks with them, and relationships I hope are improving.
Very well. Deputy IA.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister inform the Assembly of how many staff and inmates in the prison are currently testing positive for COVID-19? And will he advise whether inmates are currently receiving visitors while the virus is present? Thank you, sir.
Sorry, I'll try to answer the question without delving into my documents. I think we've just found that 3 inmates were tested positive for COVID, and there's, I think, 5 or 6 prison officers. The figures, of course, change very readily. We do allow visits. We still allow visits, which are, of course, extremely important, and were a huge problem at the at the most severe parts of the pandemic. But we do test absolutely regularly. So prisoners are tested 3 times a week 2 lateral flow tests and 1 PCR test, and all visitors have to test before meeting prisoners.
Supplemental, Deputy?
Nothing further, thank you, sir.
Senator Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Following on from Deputy Ward's question and the Minister's clarification that he would have referred to the French government rather than the French people, given that we've got just under 1,000 French people living in Jersey, would the Minister like to take the opportunity actually to apologise for what were actually quite silly comments in making that, and something that people of that nationality may have been offended by?
Minister.
People are represented by the government they elect, and unfortunately the actions of that government reflect on the people. The French government has not treated the trade cooperation agreement very well. It is a contract, it has been signed, it needs to be implemented. It's not being negotiated. I'm still quite angry at my counterparts in France for not just, getting on with the job and making a political issue of it. So while I am angry, I'm sorry, but the actions of the French government will reflect on the people who elected them.
Supplemental question, Senator?
Yes, please, sir. What the Minister's just said is absolutely outrageous, of course. It is not a reflection of the just short of 1,000 French residents.
But Senator, it does have to be a question. It can't be a statement of a political nature.
Well, it is a question, sir. And would the Minister like to consider his comments that he's just made, given that they are outrageous and they are not a reflection of the French residents who are valued members of our community in Jersey? And would he like to give some consideration to whether what he may well have thought was a clever joke but was actually a very silly and insensitive comment? Would you like to reflect on how that may make valued members of our community feel?
I'd like to remind the senator that I am myself a French person, and I feel totally habilitated to express my displeasure with my fellow citizens if I want to. The French government will have many opportunities to mend the relationship with Jersey, but they're really not trying hard now. So I'm sorry, I will not.
Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister detail what understanding he has of the term rape culture and how it might apply to Jersey? And if he's not familiar with this term, would he commit to seeking assistance from his officers to educate himself on this term and associated issues, please?
When I'm not familiar with something, I tend to immediately study it. So the first time I heard this, I was extremely shocked at the use of an extremely abusive term, and I researched it. And it seems to be something that has been invented in America in a completely different context than the one it is used here. We have a patriarchal culture in Europe, which also exists in Jersey. This is something that can be worked on and that can be fixed over the years. So there is a problem that we can fix. The term rape culture, I'm sorry, is still offensive to me.
Supplemental question, Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. And I agree with the Minister that rape is an offensive act and we should work together to eradicate it. Does the Minister agree with me that we should be aiming for a complete eradication of crimes of this nature?
I could talk for hours on this. Absolutely. There is no foundation, no excuse, no basis. There's nothing that can excuse rape. It will be difficult to eradicate. Some of it is cultural. Some of it is because some people are born predators or become predators because of the circumstances in their life. But we must be relentless in their pursuit. We must find them, we must punish them, we must rehabilitate them. And I'm very, very clear with that. And I will certainly welcome the help of the deputy if he wants to participate in our task force and try to help the Jersey government to achieve this in the next few years.
Deputy Sutton.
Thank you, sir. And I return again to the issue of the French and would ask the Minister whether he considers that whether or not he intended to address the French government or the French people, his statement on the French was not useful and potentially damaging.
Yes, sir.
I'm very surprised that I thought states members would follow the news a little bit more. Of course, it's not the whole 70 million people. We have excellent friends in the region. We've been trading, exchanging culture. You know, it is not a whole country. However, their government has treated the government of Jersey in a despicable fashion. And I'm sorry, you cannot make me angry about this.
Supplemental, Deputy Sutton?
If I may, sir, despite the level of anger that the Minister appears to feel, does he not accept that actually he appears technically to have broken the law?
Well, yeah, you can answer
Could
that.
I have some precision on that? I'm not quite sure which law he's talking about.
Well, I suspect I think there was a mention of hate or discrimination according to race or something. I mean, I don't understand the question myself, Deputy Sir.
I may help. I am ashamed to be French.
Well, Conatapa St Martin.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to ask the Minister for Home Affairs, what new forms of communication and improvements to the understanding and sensitivities of police and other law enforcement officers does the Minister intend to provide to improve the opportunities to safely report sexual and domestic violence?
Thank you. I will try again to answer this rather complex question without looking too much at my notes. Jersey has a victim charter which ensures that victims are treated fairly and according to their needs. A victim can request to be interviewed by an officer of the same sex. They can ask for special measures which are quite extraordinary and which, for example, would allow a recorded interview to be used in court rather than the witness being present. So there are quite a number of systems and possibilities opened for the victims to make to make their work as easy as possible. And of course, there's a lot of training going on in trauma-aware approach of all victims.
Supplemental question, Conatapa St Martin?
No, thank you, sir. I thank him for his answer.
Senator Valwa?
Yes, thank you, sir. I'd just like to ask the Home Affairs Minister whether there is any particular legislation that we will see that's not expected in terms of the requirements under the Code of Practice between scrutiny and government ministers around legislative scrutiny. And if he expects that to be the case, what can we expect to see in terms of forthcoming legislation from Home Affairs?
Sorry, I'm not quite sure I understand the question. Was I asked whether I would bring legislation that changes the code of interaction between scrutiny and the ministry?
I think if you could clarify your question, Senator Valwa, in the short time available.
Yes, no, quickly, in terms of any legislative requirements that are being brought forward that the scrutiny panel or members are not aware of, is the Minister going to make us aware of those?
As far as I know, there are no pieces of legislation that will come during this term that scrutiny has not heard about. I think Home Affairs from the beginning was extremely keen to actually share with scrutiny as soon as we had an idea about legislation and talk about principles even before we officially requested drafting. So I'm pretty sure that scrutiny is aware of everything that is in the pipeline.
Very well, that brings the time available for questions to this minister to an end. The next question period is for the Minister for Infrastructure. Are there any questions? Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to ask the question that I registered as an oral question and we didn't have time for, although there is an obvious question I would have asked. So will the Minister advise whether Jersey is to follow the changes to the UK Highway Code establishing a hierarchy of road users announced in July 2021 and due to come into effect in the UK in the 29th of January? And if so, will he explain what steps his department has taken to bring about and to communicate such changes, including liaison with theory test providers in order that they may prepare? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Yes, I think it's yes to everything there, sir. These important changes to the national official highway code also apply to Jersey and will come into force here on the 29th of January, subject to the UK Parliament not raising any objection. The updates will in particular improve safety for cyclists, pedestrians and horse riders. We will of course be highlighting the key changes to the official highway code through a timely awareness and media campaign over the coming weeks. And I would encourage road users to make sure they are familiar with the updated code when the UK DVLA publish it at the end of the month. The island will also benefit from UK publicity campaigns on TV and newspapers when launched. DVS in Jersey are in the process of reviewing and updating the driving theory test to reflect these changes. Thanks, sir.
Right, a supplemental question, Deputy?
Yes, sir, thank you. Can I ask the Minister, does he think enough has been done and does he have a clear picture of, for example, whether car drivers will understand how to prevent a left hook collision or indeed what the Dutch reach system is? Because certainly, sir, I know I had to read about it. Thank you.
Yes, that's a fair question, sir. The UK are going through the same process. As I say, there will be a saturation on national television, which obviously we all watch, national newspapers, obviously, which we mostly read, and we will be doing our own publicity through our own department, sir. The Dutch reach, if I'd like to explain to members, is reaching to, if you're right-hand drive, and you open your door to get out with your right hand, you're still looking forward. If one uses the left hand, the Dutch reach, one has to rotate the body, thereby looking behind one. So it's a safety thing. And obviously the opposite, if you're a passenger, use the other hand and swivel the body. It's just a safety precaution to make sure you're not going to knock a cyclist, a motorcyclist off their bicycle when exiting your car.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Jersey Opera House received the funds for refurbishment through the Fiscal Stimulus Fund in 2021. We are now in 2022. Would the Minister update where we are with refurbishment of this culturally significant building?
Yes, I believe this is being handled by Economic Development, sir, who take care of leaseholds, etc. in this respect.
Right. So the short answer is it's not your question to answer, Minister.
Just supplement.
We do take care of some maintenance on behalf of the various departments, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Gardner.
Yes, please. Is Jersey Property Holding is not responsible for the Opera House building? And if yes, why they're not involved in the refurbishment of this?
We are responsible for the building, but as I say, all negotiations for this particular item are going through Economic Development, sir.
Very well. Deputy Trustbot.
Thank you, sir. The railway walk is in a poor state of repair. Could the Minister outline what work is planned for 2022 to remedy the situation? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Railway walk is one of part of our jewel in the crown, if you like, sir, if I may quote that. It's in wonderful condition. There have been a tremendous amount of works gone on under the surface, quite literally, with various utilities putting new pipework in there. It does need regular maintenance. We have been short-staffed. I won't go into reasons why, they are pretty obvious, but it's something I'm keen to update as soon as possible, sir.
Supplemental, Deputy Truscott.
Well, yes, sir. In 2020, during question time, the Minister indicated there would be a new work plan for the railway walk, would be forthcoming, and that a new contractor would be appointed. Can the Minister confirm that this is still the case, and if not, why not? Thank you, sir.
It is still the case, sir, and I don't have any further details at present. Obviously, our priorities have laid elsewhere for the time being, but I am very keen to get the whole project restarted, sir.
Cornettabus and Brillard.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister outline what consideration his department is giving to green hydrogen production and storage in the island? Thank you, sir.
Green hydrogen production is somewhat in its infancy for us, sir. They have got quite a bit going on in the UK and a big plant in Belfast. They've several double-decker buses in Belfast. I think 6 of them run on hydrogen, green hydrogen, and it's something that's obviously for the future for us. We don't have the money to lead on this project at the moment, but we are monitoring what happens elsewhere. I'm quite content to have electric vehicles for the bigger, more industrial vehicles like big buses and industrial equipment. I think possibly hydrogen is the way to go, and obviously green hydrogen will be a step even further. So I'm aware of the technology. I'm very keen to implement it, but it's a little way down the road for us at the moment, sir.
Supplemental, yes.
Will he, as Transport Minister, be liaising with other agencies, namely Economic Development, the Environment Minister and Ports, to ensure we are abreast of hydrogen-powered transport initiatives? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. I was discussing it just, I think it's 3 weeks ago with SP3, which is the policy department, which actually links through infrastructure and also environment. So the teams are very well of the technology, and we are pursuing this, sir.
Well, Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. The question is about the old Lekeneve school site, sir, which I think is under property holdings for the Minister. We've had several complaints, as I believe local deputies and representatives, I certainly have, about the lights being left on at the old school, which are very bright and shining into residents' homes. This seems to be a big nuisance for them, and is the Minister aware of that? And would he take measures to actually reduce or eliminate this light pollution?
I thank the Deputy for that, sir. No, I was not aware, and I will alert the department to this problem, sir, and make sure it's remedied immediately.
And so supplementary.
Yes.
I'm not sure if this is directly within the Minister's remit, but we've had similar issues in the recent past at the new Lekeneve school on the sports fields, where lights are shining into some homes there as well. Would he be able to liaise with the Education Department to make sure that there isn't similar light pollution on that property as well?
Indeed, sir. There are certain lampshades, for want of a better word, that reflect light away from residential areas, and I'm very keen for these to be fitted where appropriate, sir, and I'm more than happy to pass that on.
Deputy Morell. Deputy Morell. Second question, Deputy Trescott.
Thank you, sir. So work has started at Fort Regent to renovate the gardens. Could the Minister confirm if this piece of work went out to tender, and if not, why not?
I think part of it was sent out to tender, sir, but a lot of it's being done in-house with our own arboricultural team, sir. We have our own tree experts.
Okay, thank you, sir. No supplementary.
Thank you. Senator Mezek.
And thank you, sir. Could the Minister update the Assembly on progress made towards implementing the decision we made in the government plan debate to introduce a bus pass for students? And can he say when parents and those students will be able to purchase those bus passes?
Yes, sir. This it does sound quite simple in the voting, sir, but it is an amazingly complex piece of work. We have our own team put together that's a project team that's liaising with Liberty Bus, and Liberty Bus are working very hard on this also. There's lots of work to do. There's a new computer program needs doing, new smart cards need to be profiled. It's quite complicated in as much as the cards have to be, each individual card has to be programmed, but they can transfer, when it does come out, they can't transfer any balance from the previous smart card by way of topping this one up as part of the £20 fee, for instance. So that is not a problem. There's lots of work to do because lots of students, for example, transfer from the regular bus service to the school bus service. Plus, this applies to people of 18 years of age and under. That would also apply to people who are going to work. So the impact on the regular bus service and the school bus service has to be taken into account. Do we need more buses? Do we need more drivers? There's an awful lot of work to do. And obviously, it was not possible to do this within the time that states voted for it and the 1st of January. Obviously, a lot of departments were closed down. Ours were still going. But also we had obviously Christmas and New Year right in the middle of this 2.5-week period. So both teams, so I'd say our own team at infrastructure and indeed Liberty Bus are working very, very hard to get this up and running, sir. And I'm very keen to get the whole system running as soon as possible, sir.
Supplemental question, Senator?
Yes, please, sir. He says as soon as possible. When exactly is that? And why is it so much more complicated than the existing schemes which already exist for bus passes, whether it's for disabled islanders or pensioners, where similar schemes already exist? Why is it so complicated?
As I just pointed out, sir, it's a new system that has to be time expired because it will expire when somebody reaches the age of 20. So the dates have to be programmed into the computer. Otherwise, somebody could have a student card and that will last them the rest of their life, which obviously is not part of the proposition and we simply can't afford it. Things have to be programmed. There's an awful lot of work to do with getting the whole system up and running. There's lots of things that have been done of late. Obviously, we have senior citizens cards. We have a disabled persons card. I recently signed the docket for assistance for a disabled person or a immobile person. That's all gone through, but this is particularly different and it will take a few weeks to set up. I can't give an exact date. All I can say is as soon as we can get it going, we will get it going. There's also work obviously needs to be doing with Treasury. This has to be paid for, and every time the card is used, we have to reimburse Liberty Bus. Liberty Bus is a private company. It doesn't belong to us, so we have to renegotiate the contract. That's step one. But we are proceeding as fast as we can, sir.
In fact, I hope, Deputy Morell, you're not typing out your letter because that now brings the time for questions to this Minister to an end. We now have a question period for the Chief Minister, Conrad Arbuthnot-Helio.
Thank you, sir. The Chief Minister is pictured in today's paper welcoming the opportunity to increase the size of the park in his home parish. Senator Le Fondre will be aware that Andiam Homes has invited the government to share in its vision of incorporating the Jersey gas site in its entirety to double the size of the Millennium Town Park in St Helier, yet he has not yet embraced this golden opportunity. Are St Helier residents less entitled to reap the benefits of an expanded park than those in St Lawrence?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. Sorry, so I'm getting an echo, which we're just trying to resolve.
We can hear you, Chief Minister.
Okay, thank you. Sir, I'm delighted that the Conotab of St Helier recognises the benefits of living in St Lawrence, sir, and no doubt he'll be moving parishes in due course. Sorry, I obviously speak with huge tongue inside of cheek, sir. I absolutely recognise the concerns of the Conotab, and I think the two issues are somewhat different. And really, sir, just to focus on the fantastic gift that has been made to both the island and the church, sir, by a beneficiary or benefactor who wishes to remain anonymous. I again pay tribute to both the politicians who've been involved in the discussions on that and the officers in finalising that particular transaction. And again, very much state my heartfelt thanks, sir, to the very generous gift that has been made. Obviously, sir, that is very specific to a location. It happened to be in St Lawrence. It happened to be the playing fields where the Nightingale was located. And sir, I'm sure if a similar gift was available in St Helier, sir, the Conotab would be as delighted as I was to receive it, in his case, on behalf of St Helier residents and islanders. Obviously, sir, I was asked as Chief Minister to receive it on behalf of the island. Sorry, sir, in terms of and as an extension to Coronation Park. Thanks, sir.
Supplemental question, Conotab?
Absolutely, sir. I didn't ask my question to enable the Chief Minister to expatiate on the delights of the offer to expand Coronation Park. I was asking him to commit to the opportunity and indeed to the offer of a gift to the states to double the size of the Millennium Town Park, which of course provides essential open space to thousands of islanders and far more than will ever be able to benefit from the doubling of the size of the park in St Lawrence. Will he commit to pursue vigorously the offer of Andiam Homes?
So as the Conotab knows, that particular plan, I think, is still under review. I don't believe it has been rejected, sir, in any shape or form. Obviously, sir, there is an extant or an existing States Assembly decision on the site, which may well have to be taken into consideration. But as the Conotab full knows, sir, I've got absolutely no issues with looking at that, sir. We do have to look at it in the round. In terms of what comes through, and obviously, sir, with the somewhat added complexities of the various planning discussions that were taking place. And so, frankly, sir, I think we just need the next update as to where we are.
Deputy Truscott.
Sir, could the Chief Minister confirm if it was the case that his government was blindsided by Guernsey over vital ceiling negotiations with Condor, or was it the case, as has been suggested, that his government were slow to respond to proposals? Thank you, sir.
Sir, there have been a number of discussions and meetings in relation to the ongoing sea links and the future operational license that does come up basically does come up for negotiation in a particular number of years' time. I'm trying to keep this simple, sir, because it's quite a complicated subject. And certainly, sir, at on officer level, those and actually at a political level as well, sir, there have been that has involved a reasonable amount of communication with Guernsey, sir. So the announcements that were made just before Christmas, sir, we are seeking to understand them further, and hopefully we'll then discuss them properly with Guernsey in the near future, sir.
Supplemental, Deputy Truscott.
Yes, thank you, sir. So there was, as part of the negotiations, talk of a collaborative purchase of an additional vessel. Can the Chief Minister confirm if his government is interested in such an initiative? Thank you, sir.
So I'm very happy to discuss matters with the Deputy offline. The caveat in terms of what I can say in the public domain is obviously all these negotiations and discussions do take place in under confidentiality until these matters have been finalised, and then obviously we will then brief members accordingly. What I can say, sir, is there has been a considerable amount of work actually with all interested parties, including the new investor or relatively new investors in Condor, and those discussions do continue.
Senator Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Given that the Chief Minister is the Chief Minister of an island that has just short of 1,000 residents, members of our community who are French, does the Chief Minister agree with the words that were spoken by his Home Affairs Minister just before Christmas, that we shouldn't trust these people?
Il faut dire, Monsieur Labaïd, que j'ai toujours aimé la France. Et il faut dire aussi que le ministre, le député, est certainement un homme très passionnant. Et en général, mais en particulier sur le sujet de la pêche, où il y a beaucoup de passion de tous les côtés. Ça. Et ça, c'est tout que je peux dire sur le sujet, je crois.
Well, I'm not sure that answers the question, Chief Minister. I mean, you were asked specifically whether you agreed, not about the appearance, not about the actions that not about your view of the strength of feeling in the Deputy Chief Minister. So perhaps you could answer the question.
Yes, sir. I think the point there is I rather feel, sir, that passions arise on all sides of this. I think the interpretation that the Senator is placing on the subject is not one that I would agree, and certainly not one that I would suspect the Minister would place on it either, sir. And frankly, sir, it feels like a point-scoring exercise, which I'm not going to be drawn into. What I will say, sir, is that the subject of fishing remains very close to our hearts. It's something we obviously, there are very strong views on all sides, and it's something that we remain as diplomatic and appropriate, sir, we can do in the context of the ongoing discussions that we have. We have very close cultural and historic links with France over hundreds and thousands of years, sir. And sir, one would not wish one dispute in one area to permanently damage those relationships in the longer term, sir.
A supplemental question, Senator Mezek.
Thank you, sir. And of course, it's never point scoring to stand up to minority communities when they're subjected to divisive tactics by politicians. Would the Chief Minister therefore undertake to perhaps have a quiet word with his Home Affairs Minister to encourage him to be a bit more sensible with his words in future?
So I don't think I can add anything more to the response I've given, sir.
You, Deputy Gardner. Deputy Gardner.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you. We can hear you, Deputy.
In answer to my question, the Education Minister back in November advised that the draft report of primary school estate review would be considered by Regeneration Steering Group at the beginning of December. Would Chief Minister advise if any progress was made and if we have a way forward on these matters?
Sir, actually, thank you. I thank the Deputy for the prompt. It wasn't considered at that RSG. My expectation, sir, is it is coming to the next RSG. I was just trying to look at my diary to see when it is, but I think it's in the next, I believe it's the next 2 weeks, i.e. before the end of the month, sir. I'll very happily update the Deputy once those considerations have taken place. My recollection, and I will go back and have a look at it, is that there was one aspect of the proposals that seemed eminently sensible, but there was one other area that needed some further understanding.
Supplemental, Deputy?
Sure, thank you, sir. Yes, the review is ongoing from March. In this assembly, Chief Minister declared that we would see the results in 6 weeks, which is June. Today, we just hear that has been postponed again by 2 months. Would Chief Minister consider this matter as a matter of urgency, that we can move forward not just with school estate, but with other estate matters that currently cannot progress because of this particular review?
Sir, as I said, my expectation and my memory or my recollection on the matter is that there were some further matters that needed expanding upon in the report when I first saw the drafts, which I imagine was back in November/December, sir, and therefore my expectations that will be coming to RSG at the next sitting. I do appreciate, sir, the concern of trying to move this particular area forward. I will just say, sir, that obviously from the perspective of, in terms of the overall estate position, the office consolidation strategy therefore is happening, and Cyril the Marco House is in the process of being demolished. The health side of the estate, provided obviously the Assembly has agreed the site, therefore that is giving certainty in that area, and for example allows St Saviour's Hospital to now be released, and so therefore the education side of things is one of the final measures that need to be placed, I think, in this first round to give some certainty going forwards. But we have been introducing more certainty into other parts of the estate during the last 18 months.
Deputy Tellier.
Thanks. So I do want to follow up on Senator Mezet's question. Does the Chief Minister think that comments from his Home Affairs Minister and his party leader, when he said "do not trust the French," does he agree with those comments, and does he think those comments are helpful with regard to island diplomacy with our closest neighbours?
I'm afraid, sir, until I've actually listened to the context, so I'm not commenting any further. I was unfortunately just dealing with something else when Deputy Guida was being questioned, sir. But as I've said, sir, on all sides, passions run strong at various times. And so the crucial thing is that we arrive ultimately, in terms of the fishing negotiations, at a sensible and data-based outcome, sir.
So supplementary.
Yes, Deputy.
Does the Chief Minister trust the French?
Sir, I trust many people, and I don't tend to get into nationalities on that basis.
Deputy Ayer.
Thank you, sir. The UK Treasury has written off £4.3 billion of money obtained wrongfully from its emergency COVID schemes. Does the Chief Minister believe that a similar approach should be taken by our Treasury Minister? Thank you, sir.
Sorry, sir, the deputy cut out literally for 2 seconds right in the middle of that. I caught that the UK had written off a large sum of money from its something COVID schemes, and then it slightly went blank, sir.
From its emergency COVID schemes. Does the Chief Minister believe that a similar approach should be taken by our Treasury Minister?
So my understanding that part of the issue that had been written, I thought part of the issue that had been written off was because of essentially difficulties in recovering monies which perhaps shouldn't have been paid out. And as I said, I know we do continue to maintain and hopefully have reasonably strong governance controls around it. If it's actually write-offs in relation to businesses, I think that very much depends on the circumstances. But from my perspective, we've been very clear where grants have been given and which are therefore not recoverable, and where effectively deferrals have been made, and it's more so a case of how one and over what period one attempts to recover that money. So I think really, so without a greater context, it would be unable to agree directly with the statement by the deputy.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Yes, please, sir. A small number of people have mistakenly claimed from the co-funded payroll scheme and are now being asked to repay the full sum over a very short period. Does the Chief Minister believe that they should be allowed the right of appeal against this decision? Thank you, sir.
So it's difficult to comment. I'm not fully appraised of the specifics, so it's very difficult to comment without knowing the details. I think so it comes down to whether if it was mistaken versus in willful ignorance, shall we say. So it will depend on the circumstances, and it will also depend on the amounts involved and what the impact of those amounts are on the survivability of their business. So without knowing, those are illustrative examples. So without knowing the details behind that, I don't think I'd be willing to comment at this stage. But we have followed a stance of supporting many businesses through this pandemic, and we continue to do so, sir. So I would hope that would give an indication of the likely direction of travel that we have. So it very much depends on the circumstances of the individual cases.
That brings the period of time allocated for questions to the Chief Minister to an end. And we now move on to other matters on the order paper. There's nothing under J and K. We come to L, which is public business. And the first item of public business is the changes to the objects and purpose of the Anne Alice Rayner Fund P92 reissue, lodged by the Minister for Treasury and Resources. The main responders are the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel, so Senator Moore, and I ask the greffier to read the citation.
Deputy Talia, before the proposition is read, I was wondering if I could seek clarification on whether or not my item could be taken at this sitting, and indeed when we might take it. It'd just be very helpful to be able to prepare for that.
Your item being the last so far on the order paper, is it?
Yeah, that's right, sir. So I need to get leave for it to be taken at this hearing, and
oh yes, I see. That's
I would like
that. So we do normally deal with that at the beginning of business, so members know what they are to deal with during the course of the sitting. I hadn't actually spotted that we needed to get that matter sorted out. So you wish to propose and you wish to seek the leave of the Assembly Deputy for the lodging period to be truncated, and for members agree to take the item at this sitting, yes?
Yes, please.
Is that seconded?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak on that?
Yes.
Do I need to say why, sir? Do I need to?
Well, you can propose it if you want, or if there's any debate, then you'll have the chance to sum up, of course.
Okay.
It's up to you.
I mean, very quickly, sir. Obviously, I was in contact with members directly and the Minister as soon as I heard about the changes to visiting rights at the hospital, and I thought it was something that urgently needed attention, and so it was necessarily lodged quite late after I tried to exhaust all other avenues with the Minister to find out if there was a way for visiting rights to be at least partially reopened to some of those who couldn't currently visit, but that's not proven possible. And so I do find myself lodging this fairly late in the day, but with as much notice as I could really give. So I think it does merit a debate, sir, because we're dealing with balances of human rights here about family life, and vulnerable people are getting access to visitors and vice versa, whilst at the same time being able to do so in a safe environment, sir. And I think that's a decision that's being foisted upon us and the public without any real knowledge as to why that's been done and what the alternatives might have been, sir.
Well, so you make the proposition. It's already been seconded. So does any member wish to speak? Yes, Deputy Ward.
Sorry, so I think Deputy Talia has covered most of it, but the nature of this is last minute because the change was last minute. I think it does need some debate. I've had a number of constituents contact me to say what's happening at the hospital and so on and so forth. How can I get a visit? How long is this going to go on for? And so I think it does need an urgent debate, whatever people think for or against or whatever. It's just the nature of the beast, so to speak. So I hope that the Assembly will accept this in this sitting. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Deputy Swan.
Thank you, sir. Yes, and I confirm I have been in discussions with Deputy Tadier, and I have no objection to this being lodged at this stage. But I do have to tell members that at present I'm not able to accede to the request in the proposition on clinical advice, and I do intend to provide members with a comments paper during the course of tomorrow, I hope as early as possible. It is the case that COVID remains a serious threat in the hospital to vulnerable people, and this is a proper response to an outbreak, and it is very regrettable. I would wish to restore visiting as soon as we can, but it seems on clinical advice I will need to oppose the proposition.
But you have an objection, as I understand it, Minister, to the proposition being tabled and taken at this sitting?
No, I don't, sir, as long as we can debate it at the end of the list, as is listed on the order paper.
Well, Deputy Martin.
Yeah, I think I need clarification from Deputy Tadier when he wants it taken at the end of the list. I definitely won't be supporting it being taken early. I understand he's heard from constituents. We actually spoke to the staff and the young nurses who are being abused. The minister is trying to sort something out, and I don't think this is helpful. So I don't agree that it should be. I don't even agree he should have lodged it. I mean, we do know the abuse we've taken from anti-vaxxers outside the States Assembly, and this is the sort of abuse nurses and healthcare staff are getting in the hospital just if they've been asked if you've got, had you have a test and can I see it? So we could spend a day debating it, and clinically it still won't be safe. So what's the point, sir? So I'm not voting it can be taken today, tomorrow or Thursday. Thank you.
Very well. Does any other member wish to speak on Deputy Tadier's proposition to take his matter at this session? No other member wishes to speak? Then I close the debate and call upon Deputy Tadier to respond.
Thank you, sir. Thank those who spoke. I'm glad. I appreciate the minister, who I think is a Democrat. We don't necessarily agree with the way forward in terms of the outcome of this proposition, but he will at least allow it to be debated. I'm concerned with some of Deputy Martin's comments because from my conversations with the minister, it's become quite clear that the ban on visitors has nothing to do with the staff having been allegedly been abused by some people who were asked to produce a vaccine status, or rather a lateral flow test status, for example. But it's been more so to do with, I'm told now, about infection on the wards and the risk of spreading it from patients who have already got it to visitors. So perhaps not what we initially thought. And indeed, just to correct the Deputy Martin, I've also come across people who have said, look, we've had a test done, and when we've offered to show the test result to the ward staff, they've said, no, don't worry, we don't need to see the test. So there is a big question about a robust procedure being in place, and I would have hoped that all members, including Deputy Martin, would want to know that there are robust processes in place so that we make sure that COVID isn't spread at the hospital, and that we make sure that everybody knows what's required of them when going to the hospital, so that there's no ill feeling on either side, sir. So I do maintain the proposition to have this taken at this sitting.
Very well. In which case I ask Greffy to place a link into the chat and open the voting and ask members to vote in the normal way. A vote pool will be a vote to permit Deputy Tadier to take his proposition P8 of 2022 at this sitting at the end of the list. If members have had the opportunity of casting their votes, so the Conatable, when you asked for a point of clarification, I've opened the voting. I'm afraid it's too late for that, unless it's a ruling from the chair you're asking for. I'm not quite sure which it is.
If I could just perhaps explain a little further, so I have a very personal interest in this, in that I have a relative currently in the hospital, so I would personally benefit from any decision that was made on this subject. I just wonder whether I'm conflicted on that in that respect.
No, you aren't, because this is a decision as to whether we found the matter for debate this week or not next week. It's not a decision in which you have a direct interest. It's not a question of if it's debated. It's a question of when, and it's not in any sense a financial interest. So. As far as I'm aware. So no, you don't have a conflict.
Thank you, sir.
So, a moment. Very well. If members have had the opportunity of casting their votes, I ask the Greffier to close the voting. Propositions adopted, 36 votes pour, 6 votes contre, no abstention in the link, and a further 1 vote pour and 1 vote contre in the chat. Therefore, P8 will be dealt with during the course of this sitting. We now
have 6, please, sir.
6, yes.
Those voting contre in the link, Deputy Pinnell, Deputy Wickenden, Deputy Martin, Deputy Ash, Senator Ferguson, and the Conatable of St Peter.
Very well. We now resume.
Me again. I put a comment in the chat earlier, but could we now resolve whereabouts on the order paper this is taken? I would propose that it's taken as the first item tomorrow morning, and the reason for that is twofold. I think that it's important that we get this resolved as quickly as possible, so that the staff on the ward, the patients and visitors know where they are with the matter and it can be resolved. But secondly, I know that the Minister wants to put comments in, and I think that there should have been a sound enough written rationale provided up until now to justify the decision, which could be shared with us by tomorrow morning, so the Minister would have overnight to do that, rather than taking it as the first item now, sir.
So you would like to make a proposition to deal with the matter as the first item tomorrow morning?
Yes, please.
If that proposition fails, then it will remain unchanged from its current listing, which is at the end of the week. In other words, we can't have a succession of propositions to say, well, if not tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, if not tomorrow afternoon, and then Wednesday morning. I think it needs to be.
I think that's right, sir.
Very well. You've made that proposition then. Is it seconded? Chief Minister.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm sorry. Hang on, echo. Sorry to come in, sir. Whilst I didn't have any great issues with the principle of debating this during the course of this session, sir, or the sitting, it was enlarged yesterday, sir, in terms of the wording. We make the point again, it's against clinical advice to deal with an outbreak. And yet the deputy is literally suggesting essentially that we'd be debating this something like, I'm trying to do the maths, but I'm going to say 16 hours from now, give or take. I think that's appalling, sir. And frankly, I think we should be. I think the health minister, sir, was very, as the deputy himself said, is a Democrat, is respectful of having the debate. But please, let's try and have an informed debate, sir. But the health minister, Deputy one category, did say he was supportive, but on the basis that it was in the order that it was on the lodging on the order paper, sir, which was last item. I think so. We should stick with that, very strongly stick with that, at the very least, to an attempt to have an informed debate, sir.
Thank you very much, Chief Minister. Deputy Martin.
Yes, I absolutely agree, sir. When the Deputy Taddeo was summing up, he's sort of completely changed the goalpost from what Con were told exactly a week ago today as to why urgent visiting need to stop, because, when people were being asked, there was being quite a bit of abuse to staff of all different levels, and now Deputy Taddeo says he's had conversation, that's not right. Now we're making a medical decision here. I want the best, most up-to-date information, and the health minister said he was quite happy for the debate to go ahead. Obviously different to me, but it looks like it's going ahead now. But I want it to go ahead at the end when I know that the best medical advice has come from the hospital and it's been gathered together, and the minister said the end of the sitting, so I certainly can't go for tomorrow morning. Be very careful. We do need, I've just heard two completely conflicted stories. I need to know which one's right. I'm not putting anyone in danger, and I don't think anybody else would want to do that. So we get the best advice from the minister. Thank you. Then we vote.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Lewis.
Thank you, sir. My apologies if I've misheard, sir. But to my reckoning, the Minister for Health and Social Services, I believe, stated that he'd be happy to accept this as long as it was at the very end of business on this particular occasion. And greeted by silence, I assumed that was accepted, and I voted for on that understanding, sir. Thank you.
Very much. Senator Balwa.
Yes, thank you, sir. I just want to make a couple of comments with regards to the arguments that have been made by Deputy Martin or the Chief Minister in regards to why this can't be debated sooner. So as I understand it, this is in regards to COVID restrictions. And as I understand COVID restrictions, where in part we've debated over the last 20 months a number of requirements that have not required such expectations as Deputy Martin and the Chief Minister have stated in their exclamations during this debate around the requirements for how and why we do certain things on clinical grounds. And we've seen from whether that's minutes through STAC or whether that's through questions in the State Assembly, that position might be differentiated from different people. So, sir, I'm not convinced of the argument that's been made from the executive as to why I shouldn't support this proposition in terms of allowing it to go ahead sooner rather than later.
Senator Mezek.
Thank you, sir. And I'm looking at the wording of the proposition which Deputy Taddeo has lodged, which says in it very clearly that it's about it's about urgently putting a system in place which keeps people who have COVID out of hospital, not able to visit people, but allows people who do not have COVID to be able to go into hospital. And as a matter of urgency, the minister should instigate a robust system. So just reading that wording, it strikes me that we're not about to enter a debate about risk, because it's factored into the wording of the proposition that this should be done in a way which is risk-free. So what I think the crucial point here that I think should sway us into enabling this debate to go ahead or not is this is actually about whether we consider this a matter that's worth urgently being considered, or one that can be considered at leisure by the government, whilst we know there are people in hospital whose well-being is being severely impacted by the fact that many of them who are vulnerable and going through extremely difficult times are not able to have people come and visit them who may actually be perfectly safe to go into the hospital and visit them. And it strikes me that the earlier we can give an indication on whether we want an urgent approach or a non-urgent approach is surely better for those health professionals, so they know what steer they're going to get, so that they can go on and, quote, instigate a robust system, and to do so urgently. So some of the messaging that has creeped into this debate about the risk, I think is misplaced, because it's factored into the wording of this proposition that it's not about that. So I think that it is fair to ask us to deal with this point as early as possible, so we can give that steer to the health professionals who can then go on and instigate that robust system. And leaving it for days on end means that we're leaving vulnerable people in the hospital hanging, not knowing sooner rather than later whether they are going to have the support of their loved ones in person in hospital to help them get through the difficult things they are. And this is something that matters a great deal, okay, to a small number of people, but to a small number of people whose interests we really ought to be considering, and considering quickly. So I would urge members to support the proposition to debate this tomorrow morning.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. I do believe it's urgent, and the urgency was raised that the proposition was lodged yesterday, and we are debating it or tomorrow or day after tomorrow. We have 29 people with COVID in the hospital, and we do need, I do believe we need to debate this proposition with a bit more information also from the health side. I also believe that the health minister clearly indicated, and we are all agreed, that the people should be allowed to visit people in the hospital. It's not about people visiting or not visiting, it's about the creating a robust system. On the procedural matters, I had full day yesterday, and I started to consider this proposition last night when I became aware, and I'm not sure if I would do it or not, probably not, but it is an option for members to put on-floor amendment. I've done it twice, and maybe government would like to put amendment. And the first thing that came to my mind, maybe it would to add to agree people with presenting LFT confirmation, or maybe comply. Or I don't know, I'm not suggesting things, but I think it's just fair to give to government at least 24 hours or 48 hours to consider this measures, and it is urgent, and to come back to us with a bit more information. So I agree we have to debate it urgently, but I don't think that it needs to be debated first thing tomorrow morning, because everyone should consider if anything else needs to be done with the proposition that was lodged just yesterday.
Senator Gorst.
Thank you, sir. Well, I'm pleased to follow the last speaker, because she really encapsulated everything that I wanted to say. It is urgent, but it would be inappropriate for us to take it tomorrow morning. If the deputy wished to say we start it at the end of the day, or we take it the first item on Thursday morning, that would allow considered comments to be made, because we're talking in reality about saying that the hospital would have to put in place a testing regime which would have significant detrimental detrimental effects on visitors as well. For example, a visitor going to the pharmacy to drop off a prescription and then going later in the day to pick it up would have to, of course, have 2 tests if we were going to deal with it appropriately. How would we actually test individuals? Let's say, for argument's sake, there's between 400 and 500 individuals that go into the hospital precinct during the course of 24 hours. The logistics of such a holding pen where people were sat together and tested, one might test negative, another might test positive. How is that to be managed? Because that is what the deputy is actually asking for, and I think it would do a disservice to his request if we didn't allow the health minister and his officials to provide a thoughtful and practical approach one way or the other. So in the words of Deputy Gardner, it is urgent. We do need to debate it, but we won't have the best debate and we won't be able to deal with it appropriately. For one, if we have to take it tomorrow, we'll simply say we stick with where we are. It might be the minds at health can come up with a solution over the course of the next day, but we wouldn't be allowing them to do that if we took the debate first thing in the morning. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Senator Deputy Pinnell.
Thank you, sir. This follows neatly on from Senator Gorst, in as much as just for the Assembly's information, we have a CAM meeting tomorrow lunchtime, which was organised last week, because when we agreed, because of the COVID infection in the hospital, that we would close the hospital for a week to non-essential visitors, and I must make that quite clear. There were many exceptions to the visitors allowed in, with maternity and end-of-life care, and just to mention a couple. So we are having the meeting anyway tomorrow lunchtime to decide and be advised by the scientific and medical staff. And why have those experts if you're not going to take their advice, which is what we did because of the infection on the ward. And so we are meeting tomorrow lunchtime to review that decision. So it could be decided without this proposition anyway. That's just my opinion. The second one is just operational, sir, wanting your advice that if we start the changes to the Anne Alice Rayner Fund this afternoon in the next 10 minutes or so, would that then be put off to after this proposition tomorrow? I'm not quite clear where we would go with it, so I'd like your advice, please. Thank you, sir.
I think the reality of the situation is that if we start debating a substantial piece of work now, it would not be good order, other than in truly emergency circumstances, to interrupt that debate. So I think the reality of Deputy Tadier's proposition is that it would follow, if we started the Anne Alice Rayner Fund now, it would follow on after the end of that debate, whenever that might be, because I'm not sure that it is practical and in good order to do it otherwise. That's my provisional ruling on that. Deputy.
So just following on briefly from Deputy Gardner, I think Deputy Gardner is spot on there. As a non-competent minister, obviously I was had an opportunity to take part in this Council of Ministers decision that brought this in. I personally went along with it and endorsed it because of the clinical advice that the experience had been is that a number of patients, vulnerable patients, had picked up the infection from visitors and that there had been incidents of abuse or so on. But I did ask for 2 things. I asked for exceptions because there will be exceptional cases, and we've heard some of those. But I also asked for a system. So I said, look, having it for a week and gives a week for the health minister to come up with a system, because I don't think it is impossible to solve the problems that Senator Gorse has come up with. I think that the health minister should be given 24 hours to come up with a way in which he could do that. They've got lots of ways they can organise some system so that persons that go onto the wards, because I think that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about people hanging around corridors. We're talking about going onto wards where vulnerable peoples are in care, have been checked out properly, that they're not carrying the infection. I think we need to make sure. So I would put that 24 hours at least, if that means to the end of tomorrow afternoon. So I'm not going to vote for Deputy Tadier saying that we do it first thing tomorrow. Health Minister needs time to be able to sort that out. Thank you, sir.
Well, Deputy Simon.
Thank you, sir. I believe it was incumbent on Deputy Tadier when making his first application to tell us that he intended to make a second application. It was the case that I think we all reasonably assumed that it would follow the normal rule that an item lodged late and permission being given would be taken at the end of the list. Deputy Tadier did not advise us to the contrary. And I confirm, as I said, that I have the team, the infection control team, contributing to a comments paper, but of course they've had all sorts of other issues to deal with. They are not purely managerial, they are clinical people managing COVID in a general hospital. And I would like to give them sufficient time to put together a reasoned explanation of their advice. And therefore I ask again, we take this item at the end of the order paper, sir. Thank you.
Very much. If it is, any other member wish to speak? Senator Moore.
Thank you, sir. Without wanting to prolong this at all, I do have some sympathy for the Health Minister. However, sir, it does puzzle me. This isn't a brand new issue. This is an issue that has been a matter of public discussion and debate for a considerable number of days, and therefore one would have expected a health service that is focused on delivery and delivering for its patients and the community of the island to have come up with these solutions prior to being forced to do so by a debate of this nature. So I would not. I would be supporting Deputy Tadier in his move to be debated after the Anne Alice Rayner Fund proposition.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. I must say it's always interesting to see. There are times when I wonder whether there is opposition to certain things from Deputy Tadier for the sake of opposition from government. If you actually read the proposition, it's a very well worded. The agreed people who do not have COVID should be allowed to visit people in hospital and to request as a matter of urgency the Minister for Health and Social Services to instigate a robust system to help people who have COVID-19 from visiting people in hospital. One of the comments I will make, sir, is that Senator Gore seemed to be mixing things up very well, which is, I think, a common approach when you want to undermine a proposition. But we're not talking about people just going in to collect things. We're talking about people visiting those who are in hospital. Now, we've talked about the balance of risks so often in this pandemic, and the risk of people being isolated in hospital if they're ill and needing their loved ones near them is a great risk. So we have a lateral flow testing system. I, for one, whenever I go to any event, at the moment I'm testing daily because we meet constituents, we try and get out, we try and be as safe as we possibly can with masks, and I test every day with lateral flow tests to confirm that I've not got COVID and I'm triple vaccinated, etc. So these are possible, they are doable, and so the schemes are there. And yet again, what we're getting from government is an overcomplication. Let's bide time so we can put a comments paper put together to undermine what we want. And Deputy Tadier has had to bring this. He's had to bring this to the Assembly because he is genuinely concerned about what's happening with this blanket ban. Let's remember that. Let's see the good in that. Let's see the positive nature in that, and the genuine, underlying concern that this has developed from. And so I think the earlier we debate this, the better. The other side, the other way to look at this is then it gives the health department more time to act upon it. So And so therefore, debating quickly after the Alice Rayner Fund would be, I think, the best thing to do here, rather than waiting a day and a half so that we can produce yet another comments paper that undermines. We've seen this so often from government, and what we actually want is some action to enable people to have the best outcomes.
Point Harbison one.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And I'm firstly delighted that Deputy Ward is doing his lateral flow tests before he goes to hospital, because my experience in the last few days, as members will know, when I've circulated an email around, is that that's not the case with a lot of people. As my elderly parents ended up in hospital, and in fact have now both got COVID, as have a number of my other relatives, and they tested negative before they went in. So I think there are some serious issues, and I, for one, would want to wait, at least give the Health Minister 24 hours to consider those issues and come back and tell us that he is able to put in place a robust system to make sure that COVID isn't brought into the hospital. Because I can assure you that I, for one, am seriously concerned, because I'm now faced with a situation where my elderly father, who went home with COVID, has now had to go back into hospital with complications. So I don't think we should underestimate the risks involved. And yes, I'm very pleased that Deputy Tadier has brought this proposal, because I think it's a debate that we have to have. But I think we need to consider all the facts before we have the debate, so that we can make a sound and balanced judgment as to whether we approve his suggestion, which I, for one, think is very sensibly worded. But I think we need to give the Health Minister a chance to consider the options in front of him and come back to us and tell us that he can do it. Because from what I've seen at the moment, it's certainly that the precautions certainly aren't happening as from what I've seen, with very patchy requests for test results, and indeed stories of people wandering into the wards who are actually have COVID and spreading it around amongst the patients. So I think we should not underestimate the difficulties here, and we need to make sure that what we're voting on is based on facts that the Health Minister, I'm sure, will supply us with in the next day or so. Thank you, sir.
Much indeed. Deputy Morell.
Well, thank you, sir. I agree with Deputy Ward that this is a good proposition. I agree that with many of the previous speakers that it is right that we debate it. But, sir, like I believe every other member in the States at the moment, sir, I'm not a health professional. I don't have a great deal of health experience in terms of treating or preventing disease, and so I want to make the right decision for the island, and I can't do that as an individual states member if I don't hear what the Health Minister and his officers have to say about the proposition that will be in front of us. And so for that reason alone, the desire to make the right decision with the facts before me as an individual states member, I have to say that I believe it is wrong to rush this in this way. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Sutton.
Thank you, sir. And the three key words for me in this debate about the debate is as a matter of urgency. And I believe that's what we should look at. We need to get on with this. We need to show that we're getting on with it, and helping people sort it out is what we're here for.
Point Harbison, John.
Thank you, sir. So I supported the proposal to take this proposal at this meeting. I think it's important that we make an informed decision, and I'm prepared to wait a few hours for us to have the complete information rather than taking it first thing. I should also like to give the competent authorities ministers the opportunity to resolve the issue tomorrow, and that may negate the need for a debate. A few hours delay to get this adopted is worth waiting for. Thank you, sir.
Does any other member wish to speak on this proposition? No other member wishes to speak? Then I close the debate and call on Deputy Tadier to respond.
Thanks. So I thank members for their, I think, mostly considered comments. There are a couple of things that really worry me here, and I think some members have acknowledged and realised that this is an urgent issue. There's an alarm bell when I hear the argument being put forward by the Health Minister and others that he's saying we need a reasonable explanation of their advice. We need a reasoned explanation of their advice, i.e. the health professionals, as to why they made a decision to stop visits. Now, it's really worrying that the Minister doesn't know or have that reasoned explanation already, because when you make it such a a serious decision about stopping visits to people who would normally be able to visit. And it's not just about the visitors, it's about the patients being able to receive visits as well, which is normally one of their fundamental human rights under Article 8, as well as just a common sense normal thing to have, is that should have been done with a reasoned explanation. And it suggests to me that the Council of Ministers didn't make this decision, and that the Health Minister didn't make this decision, and that it's been foisted upon them, upon us, and upon the public, without us knowing really why that has happened. And I'm glad that Deputy Ward has addressed some of the muddying of the waters that took place with Senator Gorst's arguments, because the propositions quite clearly states that this is about people visiting other people in the hospital. If you go into hospital to pick up a prescription, you're not visiting somebody on a ward. You're going in there to pick up a prescription. You're a patient who's got a legitimate reason. And this proposition isn't about stopping people who already go into the hospital and are allowed to go in the hospital routinely for professional or for patient purposes. This is about resuming visits for people who don't have COVID to visit other people who don't have COVID. And much more importantly, it's about putting a robust system in place as far as possible that stops any further spread of COVID. And I'll give one example about why I think this is so urgent that it needs to be taken as the first item. For example, if you do go into, I've been told by the Minister that there are exemptions that apply. And when I said, who do you have to ask to get an exemption? He said, you have to ask the ward staff. Now, again, that's really alarming. If you have to apply to the ward staff, presumably over the phone, to say, look, I want to be able to go in to visit my elderly sick husband or wife or relative. First of all, even if you have the wherewithal to do that, which not everybody will, even if you can get through on the phone, it doesn't mean that you'll be allowed to go in and see them. But imagine somebody going up to the ward and saying, well, I've been told that I have to come here to speak to you to get an exemption because my husband is vulnerable. Here's my lateral flow test. And then you've got all that can happen now. Somebody could go up to the ward and do that tomorrow and create a scene on the ward, even though all they're trying to achieve is their right to be able to be given an exemption by the ward staff. This whole situation needs to be cleared up as soon as possible. And my concern is that what we're being asked for here is that the government need to get their story straight, because they don't really know why these visitor restrictions have been put in place. And to address the comments to Deputy Martin specifically, is that I was as surprised as she was when I spoke to the Health Minister, and he said, oh no, the reason that we've put these exemptions, these restrictions in place is because we've now got COVID on the wards and we don't want visitors to catch COVID. Now, that wasn't what was widely said previously. We were led to believe that the reason for the restrictions being put in place is because visitors were not presenting tests and that they were spreading COVID onto the wards. But in fact, now the arguments seem to have changed. So if the ministers really need time to get their story straight and provide the facts to us, that's fine. But these facts should have been presented on the 12th of January at a time when this decision was made. And there should have been a written reasoning as to why this was a justified and proportionate decision, which already existed, which could then simply be presented to us as States members now to have an informed debate tomorrow, sir. I'm quite prepared on my side to give a reasoned and informed debate tomorrow morning, but I understand that if the Minister isn't able to do that, I respect his point of view, sir. So without wanting to labour the point, sir, I do maintain the proposition, and I do that because I think it's important to get this resolved as soon as possible. But I do caveat that, sir, that I've always said throughout this process on the Thursday, Friday, when I was in conversation with the Health Minister and other members, that the department can come up with a workable system that enhances the position that we're in and allows visits to resume safely. that they should do that. And I would also encourage the Health Minister's colleagues to provide him with the resources that he needs to do that securely and effectively. So if there's any way to avoid this debate from happening, I make the proposition, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. I ask the referee to place a voting link into the chat.
So may we ask what is the proposition now, please?
The proposition is, in effect, to take the Deputy Tadier's proposition as the first item of business tomorrow morning, unless, which looks increasingly unlikely, we would have started the Anne Alice Rayner debate, in which case we would wait to the conclusion of that debate. But it now looks as if the timing makes the starting of the Anne Alice Rayner debate possibly unlikely, but it will be the first new item of business in any event. Hopefully that's clear. I open the voting and ask members to vote. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. I ask the referee to close the voting. Proposition has been defeated. 12 votes for, 29 votes contra, no abstentions in the link, and a further 3 votes contra in the chat. Deputy Tadier asks for the poll votes to be read.
Those voting for, Deputy Ward, Deputy Doublé, Senator Mezek, Senator Moore, Deputy Alves, Senator Valois, Deputy Lehegara, Senator Farnham, Deputy Tadier, Deputy Southern, the Conotab of St Mary, and Deputy Higgins.
Very well. Consequently, the debate on Deputy Tadier's proposition will take place at the end of the public business, where it is currently fixed. And it's now 22 minutes past 5. We have not yet started the process of dealing with the Anne Alice Rayner Fund. If we were to do so, then the Minister would need to deliver the speech and very possibly go well after 5:30. I suppose I'm inviting if any member wishes to propose the adjournment.
May I propose the adjournment?
Yes, I'm afraid it took a rather long time to get there, but the adjournment is proposed and it appears to achieve general accord. The Assembly stands adjourned until 9:30 tomorrow morning.